It's excellent, excellent.
This is not going to end up working today at all.
Yeah, my mom was telling us, but okay. Because we did, she made it. It was excellent. Excellent.
That tree's all down.
Is the,
Yeah, good, good, good.
It's a huge one.
It was big. It's
That thing.
a big one. I think they're gonna take the whole thing.
we good? You let me know. Good to go? All right. I'm going to call to order the Community and Economic Development Committee meeting. First on the agenda is a presentation from NDS about modifying the loans made to Portage Housing. So I will give this no justice. So Mike Bogo is here to kind of present and explain. So if you want to come on up. I will say as he's walking up here, I did talk to Jen today on the phone, and we talked about how, you know, the city made investments in those years back. And the whole goal of this was to be able to create affordable housing for residents, and we absolutely achieved that mission as far as that affordable housing piece. So it is good to see that stuff like this does work. It does not work in all communities, but it certainly worked in Portage County, so.
Very true. So in your packets, I believe you have a 4-page handout. Yes. The first page is just the first 2 pages or a cover letter. And then you have 2 spreadsheets. The first spreadsheet shows you all of the community-based debt on all 3 projects. And then the last page is just the city's debt pulled out for clarity. So our request has been revised since the last time we were here. And in the cover sheet, you'll note that we're looking for 3 things. Setting the interest rate on the existing loans to 0%, and I'll explain why in a minute. Forgiving $37,545 from the Portage Housing 2 loan and $68,272 from the Portage Homes 3 loan. The debt that we're talking about is cash flow based, written at market rate rents that compound semi-annually. So what it ends up being is a moving target. When we got to year 15, 16, and we're able to start selling these houses, we took whatever the balance was at that time and divided by the number of units. And that amount would then be paid off at each sale. Unfortunately, as time goes on, we didn't sell them all at once. It would have been perfect because we've taken that amount, split it amongst all the units, sold them all, paid all the money back, and everybody's happy. But because there was time involved, the interest continued to accrue, continue to accrue, continue to accrue. So the process has been take whatever's outstanding at that time, divide it by however many units are still available, which that number goes down, which means the amount per unit goes up. We, on the first spreadsheet, you'll note on the top line of each one, it says must pay. And then there's a number beside that. For Portage Housing 2 and Portage Housing 3, those were the numbers we started with when we first started selling houses. 3, 4, 5 years ago. I don't remember exactly when that was. As people come to us now to buy out their houses, we have to increase that amount. And we don't think that's right. Because somebody who happened to be ready sooner got less must pay. Price of the house did not change. But the amount of the mortgage they had to get was less than it is now. So we're trying to redress that by this spreadsheet, taking everything, wrapping it up, as the first page says, changing the interest rate to 0 so the number isn't continually going up and up and up. Writing off a small amount so that we can then divide the number of houses that are left by that must pay. That's how we arrived at these small write-offs that we're asking for. On the very last spreadsheet, the one that shows Ravenna's information, you'll note that for $340,000 investment in all 3 phases, the total payback when we sell the last house will be over $900,000. So the city has gotten plenty of return on its investment. we're asking for.
So I know that it's just him and Amy on my committee, but Mike's here, so if anybody else has questions, I want to encourage anybody to ask. I did want to ask, and I touched base with this a little bit with Jen. The county commissioners, the city of Kent are also involved in this.
Absolutely.
Ravenna Township is also involved in this. Where do they stand with this that's being presented?
We have made revised presentations to all three.
Okay.
They are reviewing it, looking at it, answering questions. We don't have a final,
Okay,
I'm hoping by the time council rolls around, the council meeting rolls around, we'll have very specific knowledge of what they have chosen to do or not do.
okay, perfect.
Thanks, Mike, for coming in. I did get a chance to talk with Jen today about a lot of the details of it. A couple questions. On the Phase 1 projects that we're going to put the interest back to zero on that, are those people then that purchase in that Phase 1 program, are they going to pay a higher amount for the must pay than the previous people? And did we have any thought that that needed to be adjusted farther to make it equitable in this?
PH1 didn't need any debt write-off for the numbers to work out. In fact, it's actually gone down from where we started. And so we didn't have to make any adjustments with that one. It's far enough along, and the number of houses that have sold, that we didn't have to make any adjustments. The remaining sales would easily clear the debt without having to ask for more from each buyer.
Thank you. Another question, as you said, it was an investment kind of, the city put in several $100,000, and the return is going to be about $900,000. Is all of that money going back into the revolving loan account? And what will we be able to use that money that we have that has come back in the new future to work to try to encourage home ownership?
Yeah, it all goes back to the revolving loan fund for the purpose for which each fund is allowed to spend its money on. Some of this money will be funding the down payment assistance activities that you recently approved, various other housing projects, some economic development, depending on the requests that come in. So it goes back towards the public purpose that it was intended.
And do we have any plans for additional housing? You know, we built all these back in 2003 or 4, and we're going to sell the rest of them, although they can't buy them until after they've been in there 15 years. But do we have plans for building additional ones out of any of these programs?
There's currently a 7-unit project, of which 3 of the units are in the city of Ravenna, that is funded. There were some issues with the program at the state level, and there's some legislation working its way through Columbus to hopefully redress those issues so that we can get that started. Probably wouldn't be until the beginning of next year, but we do have a funding commitment on that program. It's a single-family tax credit, works a little bit different than this one. But there are issues with that Columbus needs to fix before we can start.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, when you said 7-unit, it's single family, correct?
ma'am.
So they're single houses?
Yes,
Okay. I didn't know if it was something for seniors or,
single family.
okay.
I have a few questions. Well, this is just sort of an overview question. So if you had to do this program over again, knowing what you know now, how can we structure it differently if we choose to do something like this again? What would help everybody to bring a different outcome?
I don't know that I want a different outcome. I think it was been wildly successful.
Well, I mean,
think-
one where we don't have to write off the debt, like to make it more equitable from the onset.
It's pretty equitable. The amount of the money that's being asked to be write-off is minuscule compared to the return that the city has gotten on its financing. I would, however, at the beginning of year 16, when the units become eligible for sale, come back to this body and discuss that debt ahead of time rather than several years into it. This was not something that we foresaw. These things were done I mean, we started working on them well over 20 years ago. The first 15 years, they act as rental housing.
Right.
And so the idea of getting to the point where folks started to buy was a long way off. And we didn't think to look forward to say, here's what the kinds of things we need to be proactive about when we got to that point. Also, generally speaking, across the state, this county has had one of the best experiences with this part of the program than just about anywhere else. Many of these units.
What would
not
you
been able
attribute
be
that to?
sold. Excuse me?
What would you attribute that to?
We're better than they are.
Would you specify how?
We have better markets.
Yeah.
Frankly, we had local communities with resources to help us plug the gap in the development that allowed us to build in good markets. The city of Ravenna is a good market, city of Kent, and so forth and so on. And many of the other groups didn't have that advantage like we did. So it went very well. This particular program is not, it was a component of the low-income housing tax credit program is every year down in Columbus. It's a standard thing, except its focus is on rental housing. This, back in the early 2000s, was an attempt by the state to foster long-term homeownership. I don't even know if it's still an eligible project. If you wanted to build more of these, I'm not sure that it's part of the program anymore. There are other programs that they're trying to utilize to get more houses built, but I'm not sure this one is still an option. And really hasn't been widely used or favored. It's a competitive program, and so points are given for different things, and your applications have to be selected competitively. And I'm not sure if it's even available anymore. I didn't look because there hasn't been a market for it.
Sure.
Although that's starting to change.
Thank you.
Sure.
Does anybody else have anything they want to ask?
No, thank you.
I do have a question about the RLF fund. Is there a way to increase the percentage that goes into economic development?
That would be a question to ask this body.
Is there a way? No. I think that's a great thing for us to explore, considering the return that we got, and to try to meet some of our other goals of addressing issues that we have as far as the commerce aspect of the city goes.
I mean, it's certainly something we can explore.
Well, there's a way to make it win-win with that kind of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Tammy, I came after Jen left, so Tammy was able to explain it in a better form than what it was last week.
Yeah.
You know, it was a lot of information, and it just seemed like, why are we forgiving this? But
I agree.
much more understood.
Good.
So Tim and Amy, are you guys okay with moving this forward?
Yes.
Yes, okay. Thank you so much. All right, then that's going to get moved forward. The next item on my agenda, because we've talked about storage for so many different things over the last how long, let's talk about self-storage facilities again. Our moratorium's close to expiring, and the feedback that we received from council as far as the self-storage facilities has been taken into consideration. Rob graciously has offered to help me with this one and kind of help put together some language. So Rob, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Okay, thank you. Can you put up my PowerPoint? Maybe I should mention before I dive into it that what you were sent in your packets is already outdated.
Okay.
So I've been working on this. I may have spent more time on this first than I intended, but than any other item I've worked on for council, only because every time I looked at it, I needed to readjust everything almost from scratch. So it's seemingly simple, but it's mysteriously more complicated than I had imagined it would be. Maybe almost as complicated as getting it up on the overhead. Can you see it on your screen? There we go. Now, okay, so I can I just want to make sure I can switch quickly. Yeah, okay. Because I got a PowerPoint and I have a spreadsheet I'm going
make
to
it.
talk about
There you go.
quickly. All right, so, what that didn't, hold on a second. I'm having trouble with my presentation thing. Okay, that's what I wanted. All right, so as an overview, we're going to go over why we need storage facilities, or why storage facilities are needed. The necessity for code so that we can control them when they appear. I'm going to spend a lot of time talking about the formula, how we arrive at, inside the code, what we anticipate the level of need for storage facilities in the city. And then I'll allude to the code. Now, I did send last night the actual code that I'm working on, and I'll full disclosure with the help of AI. And don't think for a minute AI wrote it. It was just, I fed it information, it gave me some feedback, and then we went through several iterations. But it's certainly a big help in getting started. So storage facilities do serve a purpose, and I know we're not too happy about them, and I don't know how many people in this room have used them. I have actually used self-storage facilities when I've needed to. And why do people need them? Because they don't have enough, room in their, homes or whatever for all the stuff they have. The other thing is that we do have code that restricts storage of certain things like boats and RVs, which could be stored at self-storage facilities. So it's kind of hard for us to justify restricting certain things and then not have alternatives for people if they can't store them in their home. Now, of course, we've talked about this. The problem with storage facilities is an economic development one. They occupy a lot of land. They're not very productive for economic development purposes, and they generate very little income. And so that's one of the reasons we have very concerns about having a proliferated amount. So how do we handle this? And we talked about this a little bit when we put in the 6-month moratorium. And in my opinion, it's all about capacity. And we can make this argument about a lot of different industries, right? It's like we have a population that, needs to be served by certain types of industries. One of them happens to be self-storage facilities. But what is the capacity? How much self-storage do people in the city need? And I think that's the basic question that I think we have to answer as we go about talking about how we're going to control them or restrict them. Now, there's various methods to figure out the capacity, and there is some industry standards. So I'm going to take a moment here to pull up my spreadsheet, and I'm just going to kind of talk loosely about what I did. First, I looked at ways that the industry sometimes tries to establish that capacity. Now, it's not for the city's benefit. It's normally there are consulting agencies out there that'll help somebody who's interested in putting in a self-storage facility. So the person may either already have land or are thinking about buying land. They can go to the consultant and say, well, is this going to be a profitable venture? And the consultant will use certain criteria to determine whether or not there's a market for it, whether the geographic area they're looking at is already oversaturated or is in need. So the first thing I looked at, I found out there's some rough numbers that you can assign in this spreadsheet, and I know it's probably really hard to read it, so I'm going to try to blow it up a little bit. There are, maybe that's a little bit too much, but there are different types. Now, we're only really talking about single story. They're the only kind that we seem to have in our general area. And some of the standards are, that per rentable square footage of storage per acre are these numbers. So if you have an acre, then of land than between 25 and 45,000 square foot of, now, so the first thing that I said to myself as well, you know, because I went down here and kind of made some rough numbers here, I kind of put it in the middle at 35, but that's a pretty big spread, right? That's not very accurate. The other thing, they started talking about units. And at first and you'll see units listed in all the spreadsheets, but the truth is that I think that's a pretty inaccurate way to measure because units are not always the same size. You could have a 150 square foot unit next to one that's 300 square feet. So how can you make comparisons to the number of units? So I kind of threw that out as I was going. But then I did some rough numbers, and I called this my conservative estimate, and ended up with some interesting numbers that, based upon whether or not the facility is within 5 miles, and I'm going to talk about that 5-mile market distance, and then I also just measured it within the city. And I know that's really small for you to see, but you don't really have to worry about that. I'll come back to these numbers later. But then I found that there was some more specific industry standards that I found were much more helpful. So this is these are the factors I'm going to use. And I'll talk about the numbers in particular when I bring up the formula. But basically, you start with the acreage, how much land these facilities are on, and then the footprint of the buildings, how much of the land is occupied by buildings, and then how much of the building has storage in it, or the capacity for storage. And those are the factors, and then also you divide that by population, and you can figure out a per capita how much storage people need. All right, so I'm going to go back to my presentation. I just wanted to give you kind of a clue as to how I went about figuring this stuff out with a spreadsheet. All right, so okay, let's go on. So, market area. So when companies do this, and these consultants are a lot more sophisticated than I am, they often don't just limit it to a municipality or township or whatever. It's a geographic area, typically like a 3 or 5 mile radius, because, you know, people are willing to drive a certain distance to get to their stuff. Probably not a half hour away, because that's an hour investment just to get to their stuff. But if it's only 5 or 10 minutes, that's not too bad. There's also, you know, a greater reliance upon facilities that are outside the city if it's, you know, if that's the factor you're using. And that's kind of the standard they use. But, and so when a client might come to them, they might say, well, where's your facility? Now let's create that as the focal point, and we'll create a radius of a certain distance, and then they figure out all the particulars. I found that pretty difficult to do. So in the end, I just limited it to the city limits for these reasons. It's easier to calculate the formula. When you're looking at facilities, there's less work in trying to figure out where these facilities are, right? So if you just know which ones are in the city boundaries, then you have a clear indication of how to do some of these numbers. And then that creates a direct relationship between the facilities and the population, because determining the 5-mile radius is extremely difficult. I mean, think about it. Where I live, 5 miles, a 5-mile radius is going to be completely different than, say, where somebody on the west side of town. So, and then even if you could figure out, let's say, well, we'll just take the focal point, the middle of the city, let's say the courthouse. Well, then you've got townships surrounding us, and you're not going to count the entire population of the township because that's not the geographic area. So now you have an overpopulation. So how do you figure those things out? It's very difficult. So anyway, that's my reason for just using what's in the city limits. So here's the formula. So if I give you a couple of minutes, you can figure it out, or you want me to. So I'll explain it.
Can I ask a question?
Sure, please.
I thought one of the most interesting pieces of information was your chart that listed the 5 or 6 storage facilities, and you included the ones that are just outside the city. Initially. When we're talking about this right now, how many facilities are we talking about, and which? Because you're going to limit it to just inside the city.
Yeah.
And so we're just talking about 2?
2.
The Freedom Street one and the
Loomis Parkway.
Loomis Parkway.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll get to that, the
Okay.
particulars when we apply the
Okay.
formula. So the formula works like this. To determine the square footage per capita, you take the acreage, and you can go to the, county's tax map, GIS website, and see how many acres that are owned by that particular facility. You multiply that by 43,560, because that's the number of square feet in an acre. You multiply that by the site coverage ratio, and you can see the numbers down here set at 40%. Now, I don't know if that's sort of a standard, but I did look at the two facilities that we have in our city, and I mean, there's no easy formula, but again, with the help of AI, I was able to give a picture of the site, and it comes out to about 40%. I don't know if that's something that typically is done when people build on a site for these type of purposes. And then the efficiency factor, how much space within each building is used for storage? The industry uses 70%. Now, I think that's low. Yeah, I think it's a very conservative number because, it's like self-storage facilities don't have conference rooms or offices. And a lot of them, you drive up from the outside and you just open like a garage door. And so I would think the number is higher, but it helps us because then whatever number we come out is, even, if anything, more conservative. So does anybody have any questions about how this, and then we divide it by the population, and that's how we have the per capita square foot of storage per person. Okay. How do I get, all right. So here's what it looks like. Oh, I'm gonna keep touching my screen and it's trying to blow this up for you. All right, so to answer Dr. Calfee's question, and I don't know how easy this is to see. We have two facilities. One is rather small. It's actually a fourth of the size of the other one on Loomis, and then another one, North Freedom. And you can see the number of acres. So if we multiply the number of acres by 43,560 to get the square acres, and then, or square footage within those 1.7 acres, multiply that by 40%, which is what we expect the number, footprint of the buildings, multiply that by 0.7, 70% of the building, that's 20,735 is the square footage for that one. The other one's a lot larger. Highlighted, you can see that we have 121, nearly 122,000 square feet of storage. We have a population of 11,323. So I'm going to do a little animation here. Let's see if I can get this to work. So if we take, come on, it's not working, is it? It's not working. Why set this? There we go. If we take that square footage and divide it by the population, we get almost 11 square foot per capita. And if we look at the standard, and the bottom table, I know it's a little hard to read, I'll blow it up. It says that it's almost at the upper limits of oversupplied. So you could argue that right now, in this fixed period of time, we have enough storage. Okay, now that doesn't answer the question about what we do with the code, but that's just a snapshot of where we are today. Okay? All right, any questions about how the capacity and per capita is all figured out and how it factors into what we're trying to do?
One question on the 950 North Freedom. They have 2,490 individual units?
No. That was based upon that, remember that vague estimate?
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, so I again, it's there,
It
but,
comes out as a unit number, but it's a divided,
yeah, it's just an estimate based
Calculated
upon the acreage, and I don't think it's really worth considering.
Okay.
And I was just lazy, I just left it
Okay.
in the table.
I
Carmen?
have a question just for the sake of comparison. Did you do the math on the 5-mile area?
I did, but see, my problem was I didn't know how to divide it because initially I just divided it by the population of our city, but then I said, well, wait a second, we're not talking about the population where those facilities are, so I didn't know how to do that.
It's hard to identify the population.
Yeah, and I was funny because I was looking at some of the maps that we were talking about for the redistricting, and I still couldn't figure it out.
But even so, I mean, when you're looking at this, we have two in the city, you're looking at how many are around us that are almost within walking distance. I mean, I don't think it's gonna change it to balanced. just in kind of looking at it. I think it's gonna,
I was just interested.
yeah. I think it's just hard because we don't know the population
Well, let
of
me-
that area.
I'm going to scoot back because I don't know if so I didn't spend enough time on this one because there's this last bullet point I kind of glossed over. But one way to justify just using the city is that if we had a larger market area, let's say somehow I figured out 5 miles from the center of the city, and I figured out the population, what could happen is a de facto ban, which is something we want to be careful about for legal reasons. Because if the capacity was reached and we didn't have any facilities within Ravenna, within the city limits, but the capacity was reached within that 5-mile radius, we could be saying to people, you can't have one in the city. And people might just interpret that as a ban, not necessarily understanding the calculations. Whether a court would side with the city is hard to say.
Well, we have the similar restrictions, like the state of Ohio has it with, like, how many liquor licenses you can have per capita. So is it really a de facto ban? When we have them, we've just reached our limit, and we don't want additional.
But they are based upon the government body or the municipality. It's not like based upon a regional area so that a city would be without bars or, you know what I'm saying?
But you see what I'm saying, though? Like,
Yeah.
we have them, it's not like we're discussing something new. They exist in the city, so a de facto ban would be something that we don't have, that we're looking for a way to keep them shut out. We're just looking at a way to limit.
No, I agree. I'm just saying the argument could be made that we're preventing ones from coming in just because of the way we're calculating it. But I was just giving, I wanted to go back and I remembered I forgot to say that. I think it's a lot neater for us to just use the city limits. I think it's going to be hard. By the way, okay, well, I'll get to it. How this is going to be done is through the Planning Commission, so, I mean, we don't want to make it too overly complicated for them. Now, this is actually taken from the code, and I think it's important to know that we want to do is, preserve the land, the higher intensity commercial, industrial, and employment uses of land. This certainly, self-storage facilities don't provide that. We want to prevent an overconcentration. We don't want an overpopulation or, of storage facilities that aren't needed. Maintain compatibility of surrounding land uses, minimize adverse impacts on traffic and neighborhood characters. But mostly ensure that self-storage development remains proportional to demonstrated community need. And I think that's probably the most important. So that's taken directly from the code. That's right up front. So this is going to be a permitted conditional use, so it has to be approved by the Planning Commission. And it's only, the way it's written, and I think we talked about this anyway, so none of this is brand new, it's only going to be available in industrial areas, industrial districts. And again, subject to conditional use approval by the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission will apply the formula that I just talked about. But in the code, and I took a quote out of here, the commission should also consider any new facility will result in if it results in an excessive concentration of self-storage uses relative to surrounding commercial industrial development patterns, it would be inconsistent with the city's long-term economic development objectives, it should not be approved. So there's sort of like a catch-all ability for the commission to deny something even if the formula doesn't pan out, to suggest that it should be denied. So it's not just based on the formula. There are other limitations included in this, and these are standard. You find them in other city codes. The total aggregate acreage is limited to 1 acre per 1,000 residents, which means a maximum of 11. Right now we have 10, so if there was another facility and they were under that formula, they could only have it on 1 acre. Only single storage facilities are allowed. Cannot occupy more than 4 acres. Now, of course, we already have one that's double that size. Not much you can do with it. It's already existing. A single facility cannot have more than 50,000 square foot of rentable storage, and buildings shouldn't occupy more than 40% of the lot area. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about this? And So the code, the complete code is in your packet. It's still subject to revisions if any of you want to make some changes. I provided the spreadsheet for your benefit. Oh, and by the way, there's also one other piece to the code. I don't know if I can find it real quick. That we do need to change the district. So the industrial district would have the addition, because self-storage facilities are not mentioned anywhere in our code of ordinances. So we would add it as number 20 under conditionally permitted uses. So that would be another part of this whole package that we can put together.
A question on the Chapter 859, the proposed code. It's quite extensive.
Right.
It includes purposes, intents. It goes through and gives guidance on how this code should be followed. Did we model this code after an existing code?
I did not.
Okay.
I mean, there are similarities to some other city codes. But what I did was feed it some of the things that I thought we had discussed and what I was concerned about, particularly with regards to capacity. And then it sort of brought in, and the way AI works is it looks at other existing codes, so that's why you'll see some similarities. But it also, and then that wasn't the end of the story. Then I read it over and then we tweaked it. For example, it came back, because a lot of places don't allow outdoor storage, but I think we should, because the fact we don't allow RVs and boats on certain parts of people's property. So, I mean, there was a lot of tweaking that went on, and so a lot of it was rewritten after AI kind of provided the backbone sort of thing.
I know when I was looking at code, a lot of places had particular even architectural design that had to be done. So there are cities that they have to be brick. There are cities that they have to be, so like pulling it apart, it was a lot more complicated than.
Yeah,
just
and we could
because
add that
everybody
kind
does
of
it
stuff
differently.
too, if you wanted to. There are some towards the end, some of the, the standards, the
Yeah.
development standards, site development standards that are expected.
At the end of it, it includes a large section of legal considerations that would need to be reviewed or looked at, or possible problems with that.
Yeah.
As I see it right now, if we adopted this chapter as it is right now, we would have, the two existing could stay.
Yeah.
We only have room for like 1 acre.
Well,
For additional one. So in effect, it would be a ban on them with this code in place.
Well, I wouldn't phrase it that way.
Not a ban. There's not
We don't
available
have, we
space.
don't need any more.
Okay.
We're already
Yes.
oversaturated in
Yeah.
a sense, according to industry standards.
Yeah.
Right.
Have, so this
Yeah.
is just a formula showing why we don't need it.
Yeah. Now, if one of them goes out of business, the formula could change.
Yeah. Okay.
Or if population changes, increases,
Right,
I mean,
absolutely.
that could certainly change.
Shouldn't have to.
Oh,
Yeah, come on up.
Larry Selenius, 123 North Walnut. Just a quick thought. Most of our business at the Board of Zoning Appeals is allowing people to put bigger sheds on their own property so they can store more stuff. So I don't know how this will affect your calculations, but it makes
well, no, it doesn't,
storage facilities even less necessary.
well, that's a good point. Although, as a former member of the BZA, I wasn't always in favor of just always giving people, a 3-car garage or whatever. But maybe I misunderstood, because I thought you were trying to say that whatever somebody built on their property would be factored in somehow, but it wouldn't.
Well, that was my question.
Yeah,
Does it
no.
affect your calculation?
No, because it's not a self-storage facility.
Reduces the need as far as square feet per person.
That's true. That is true, but it wouldn't be considered a self-storage facility per se, so it wouldn't be calculated that way.
Yeah, it'd be
But I
difficult
appreciate
to
I
calculate.
understand what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bottom line, economic development. These businesses probably have less than one person paying taxes.
Yep.
While the owners sit in other places other than the city of Ravenna and collect the money and do their paperwork, and they make money on this, and they pay zero to the city of Ravenna. Who knows if they pay where they're going, where they're at? But we make nothing on these, okay? Industrial areas only. So even if it's an acre, I see there's a business here that has, I know your business is more than an acre, but you employ several people at that business. So if we let another one here in another acre, we could lose 20 people paying taxes to the city of Ravenna. Another good business could come in. I just don't see why we even look at this. Number two, they're eyesores, every doggone one of them. I've been to these BZA meetings and planning commissions, okay? And when they come in here, they're all a bunch of angels. Oh, we're not gonna store anything out where you can see it. The one on Freedom Street, I can remember it distinctly saying, we're not gonna put anything out there. If we're gonna put anything, we're gonna put it in the back. There's been cars sitting there now, junk, for 5 years in front of that place. Who enforces this stuff, and who will enforce this on a new one? You know who? No one, because we can't do it. Okay? We need to do something here about these things. We don't need these at all. Okay? I don't know about the legality of the thing. We don't need these here. They're not doing anything for us. I spent a lot of time at them. I used to buy those storage units at auction. I made a lot of money out of them. But the deal is you could see each one had like one employee, maybe for 6 hours a day, maybe not even that. Most of them you can access by pushing a button and putting your code in.
Right, right.
My thought is why come we have the two that are in here with junk cars and old boats sit in front of them that they never move, and the one on Chestnut Street keeps all their stuff back where you can't see it, all the cars and the motorhomes and everything, and it's a very nice looking place. Why are we so lucky to have such damn messy places in our city? Because we don't enforce it, or we didn't do something in the beginning.
Was interesting observations. And one of the reasons we're doing it now is because we have no restrictions on them. Not doing anything is going to allow more to come in. And I'm hoping that through this, it provides both through capacity, the realization we don't need any more, assuming we still have the ones we have, and it supplies enough. So it's not, and it also is legally defensible, because I think the banning issue is problematic. I think anytime you ban, just you say, we're not going to allow this, which is it's a viable business. They exist all over the world. I think then you do open yourself up to some challenges.
So regarding the question about the parking of boats around the edge, et cetera, the one on Freedom Street, there's a whole row of them across the front that you see.
Yeah, I know.
There's not something that we can do retroactively on those existing facilities, is there?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Wouldn't we, but if they stated that they were going to do this, and it's on record, we pull back the minutes, why wouldn't the building, why wouldn't property maintenance go back to them and say, this, you guys came in front of us in planning commission and zoning and stated that?
I think, I don't know when that one was built. I don't know if anybody knows.
I remember, I was on council when
Okay.
that was built, and I remember being so upset when I saw it, because I thought, well, there's a perfect spot for a Starbucks, and there you go. In the back of my mind, that's a valuable piece of property. I thought maybe we would have something, because there was a Hardee's there. And I'm like, that would have been an ideal spot for a Starbucks, and now it's gone. Any chance of that hope was gone. And I thought, just what we need, a self-storage place. So, yeah.
Well, and obviously the planning commission approved it, If it was a long time ago, I think the two problems are, one, whether or not there was anything, specific about
We'll have
the
to pull
outside.
it.
But the other problem, I think, is that after this amount of time to go and try to enforce it might be problematic. I don't know. But that would be a question for, Mr. Semino to answer.
Mr. Karas, I have another question regarding the Planning Commission, which you just mentioned.
Yeah.
A lot of the proposed chapter, the Planning Commission is going to have a large role in approving these and considering different factors that are listed here in that. Do we have a plan for the Planning Commission to review and look at this proposed ordinance?
Well, yeah, I mean, especially if it gets passed, council has the ability to pass it without getting approval
They do,
or
okay.
input. We don't have a whole lot of time. It would have been my preference if we had more time to have them look at it before we pass it. I guess that's always an option, but certainly if it passes, we want to make sure they're educated about what it says.
I think we need to pass it.
If I can say something as a former planning commission member, is that it would have been extremely helpful if something like this came before me to have a formula that I could just plug it into and objectively evaluate
Right.
whether we could
Right.
have it, the key word being objective. But I do agree with Mr. Sodal, complete frustration on Planning Commission is that these people come a lot of times and talk a good game. I can think of one right now with a place behind Circle K, and they come and they say that all the things that they're gonna do and how they're gonna take care of it, and then they don't do any of those things. And I understand that's not council's, that's not our lane to be in, but it makes it difficult because when those things then don't go the way they're supposed to, people don't blame the enforcement part of the government. They look and say, well, who approved this in the first place? And it was Planning Commission. And it's a difficult position to be in when you're looking at these things.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that. I don't know what the right answer is. I think sometimes when we populate these commissions and boards with people, residents, just normal people. They're not always experts, and I think sometimes they're more sympathetic to people. I know that it's been my experience on the Board of Zoning Appeals. I don't know if you feel the same way, Larry, but I think sometimes, people are more inclined on the board to pass something rather than to take a hard look on it. But even if it gets passed and it should be done a certain way and it's not, that is the enforcement part of the city. All I can say is I think when we craft code like this, where there's more particulars, like you said, a formula,
Right.
it makes it harder for them to justify overlooking it.
So according to this, there would really only be one that could possibly be built, and it would be limited to the 4,560 square feet, because there's only one total acre left per our population, which, by the way, is
True.
declining. Ravenna's population has been steadily declining.
Well, the 1 acre per 1,000 population is just another one of those standards that are applied. But that should take a back seat to the fact that we are already oversaturated with the two we
Right.
have. It doesn't create a loophole for another one to come in at 1 acre. That's just another limitation, okay? So if we had, if the one on Freedom was 2.7, we'd already be at 11, and there would be no opportunity, even if our population skyrocketed, you know what I'm saying?
Well, if we take a look at it from an economic development objective, is that, and I know it was mentioned here by some others about how these facilities don't really employ
Right.
people, is having that there has to be so many positions per square foot.
Well, I mean, there are a lot of, it's not the only kind of business that doesn't create a lot through income, right? I mean, convenience stores don't usually have a lot of employees, you know.
But they're
car
also-
washes
they're
And they,
all-
car
they're all-
washes, yeah. And one of the car
covering
washes that are
multiple
that don't have
Unattended,
tenants, yeah.
self-service kind of stuff.
Yeah, that's true. Now, we do make money. If they make profit, we get money, right? Don't businesses who make profits have to pay corporate tax equivalent to our income tax? I'm looking at you.
Sorry, yeah.
Yes, I mean, we do make money even if there's no income tax from a profitable business.
But it takes the place, it takes the footprint of a place that could potentially, as Ms. Michael brought up, it could take the place potentially of a business that would bring in those jobs.
Well,
It takes up the
I don't
available
disagree.
space.
And the other comment was made, the term eyesore, when you're coming into a city, no matter where it is, I've been to many cities for quite a few years, and when I enter a city, I instantly look, what's catching my eye, what's attractive, what isn't. And when Mrs. Michael used the example of a Starbucks, if a Starbucks was in that corner, that's a lot more attractive. If you want to.
Maybe to you, I don't like Starbucks.
Well, I'm just saying, overall, in a general statement, I'm just using it in the general statement, compared to
Yeah.
a facility like that.
However, we have them. We can't change that. People do need them. We can't change that. I've used one. I cannot store my RV in my driveway. I need somewhere where I can put it. I don't want to drive farther than down the road to move my camper back and forth. I am sure I'm not the only one that feels that way. So this is a way for us to limit, start to control, start to have some guidelines in place in which we have not had before.
Well, I'm not saying they're not needed, it's just the location.
Well, they're in restricted to industrial.
Right. And we can't change where they're at right now. Like, we can't change what we've done in the past. However, we can put something in place like this to change moving forward what things can look like. And this is a nice start to that. Or we could sit and do nothing and let a bunch of storage facilities pop in.
Well, that'd
and
be
see
the
what
worst
happens.
thing.
So like, I feel like we need to really see, like, we can't change what decisions were made in the past. We can impact what we're presenting now. People do use them, whether we like them or not, just like the pot place. People use it, whether we like it or not. People use convenience stores, vape shops, whether we like it or not. But now we can have some leg to stand on as far as a legal leg to stand on with this, where we have not had in the past.
And look at it this way, I think your observation is right on, that we can't change the fact that we have two now. This code, although it's no ironclad guarantee, and it wasn't designed this way. I use standards that are out there now. They'll, just like insurance companies, you know, if you're going for like a personal injury kind of thing, say, oh, we don't have any formulas for how much to pay for, your personal, illness or whatever. But there are, and these are out there. So it just happens to be that with the two we have, we are at capacity, if not oversupplied. So I think, in effect, we're saying by installing code like this, that we're not going to have any more in the near future.
Well, and it's
And that's
not
the
just-
best we can do, because we're not going to take away what's already here.
And it's not just our opinion we have too much. We have something to support that.
Yeah, and
No.
I think it's legally
Larry,
defensible.
did you have something else?
Well, you mentioned the city income tax on businesses. Isn't there a $250,000 deduction? They only pay tax after the first $250,000? The city income tax on businesses.
I don't know what the laws are for those kinds of businesses.
Well, I think it is.
What are you saying?
I'm not sure what the
Yeah,
tax laws are.
are you
for
saying a
them.
business that makes more than $250,000 in profit only has to pay $250,000?
No, I'm saying you deduct the first $250,000 before you pay city income tax on business profits, to my knowledge. You want to check on that.
We wouldn't get any,
Sure, I can check on that, but yeah, that's not true.
never heard
Because we
about it.
wouldn't get any, yeah, we would get very little.
I mean, we do
Fill
provide,
out a business tax form, so I see that number every year. I believe I'm remembering it correctly.
Well, I know when I was a consultant years ago, I had this, it was based upon my schedule to see federal income tax, and I paid, and I didn't make anywhere near $250,000. So I don't know.
That's an
We'd
easy
have to look
question.
into that,
We can
but,
verify, though, yeah.
You want to look at that, and it,
but I mean, it has
is
really,
there a chance that, if I'm right, that you could change the law regarding storage facilities so they pay tax on all of their profits?
well, we would want to change it for every business.
Right.
Right.
Real quick, the one on Freedom Street has more property behind it that they own. When they put it in there originally, they said we might come back later and build more. There's more property back there. But think about this. We have several businesses in this city that could burn down or could go out of business, and they get knocked down, and suddenly you have more acreage in an area where you can have more of these put. So you need to control this somehow. And it's fine if you're saying that that's what this will do, but there's a lot of things can happen. We can only look here. We got to have foresight here. That place on Freedom Street could put another 500 units back there. I just looked at it on there. There's acreage there. It would have to come in front of there, but you're saying that we can only do another acre there.
Right.
No, it's not just based upon acreage. If they came before the planning commission, it's true that there would be an acre available, but we're already at capacity. If they use the formula for capacity, the planning commission, in my opinion, would come to the conclusion that even though they have land and could build it, we don't need any more, and they should deny the permit.
And we know how things change every day by the law of what they're going to allow somewhere, because somebody, we'll get into that. Okay. Things change. It changes usually for not the betterment of the people that are here.
Like this.
Does anybody else have anything to add, or?
My only other follow-up thought was, for what we have here, does that account for if the city did annex more land over time as part of that calculation?
No, because it's based on population, not land mass.
Okay, just curious. Thank you.
I mean, I'm certainly okay with moving this forward.
Now,
so-
if we, before, but
Go
to
ahead.
fully answer your question, if we annexed another, government agent,
Or
that
like
we would
if
include
there was like a
their
homeowner.
population would be included.
But also their storage facilities.
Yeah,
as
but
well.
also their storage
So-
facilities.
Yeah, I'm just.
And I
saying,
didn't
like,
mention this,
sometimes
but-
individual parcels sometimes can be annexed for different reasons.
Right.
Like if a property owner petitions for that, they can work through it with the
We
courts.
have 4 other facilities that are within a 5-mile radius if you use the courthouse as the, the center point. So I don't know how you could ever figure we wouldn't be oversaturated based upon my estimate of what the population
Everywhere
was
you go,
likely
there
to
is
be.
one. Yeah, every direction.
Yep.
There's no
North.
shortage.
By the way, the population of the township is 8,980.
Yeah, and if you had
So
4,
it's 2/3 of what our number would be.
and I don't know
maybe
if the one
not
on
more.
14 is still in the township or not. It might be in a different municipality or township.
Right.
I'm okay, Christina, moving
Yeah.
forward.
Are you okay with moving this forward?
Thank you, Rob. for-
Thanks, Rob, for all the work on this.
You're welcome.
For community and economic development, do we have a management update?
Not right.
All right, then I am going to adjourn my meeting at 6:58 PM. Thank you, everybody, for all your feedback. And Rob, thanks again. This was a lot.
Okay, I'm going to be, this is on, right? Convening the planning committee meeting at, 6:59, I think, okay, close enough. All right, so the first item is legal consulting and workshop with Bricker, Graydon, and Wyatt. This specifically has to do with one of our new favorite items to discuss, which is data centers. Actually, Mr. Karas brought this opportunity, I viewed as an opportunity, to me, where some communities are contracting with legal counsel that specializes in the development of codes concerning data centers, making sure that cities are using terminology and codes that are first and foremost legally defensible, and protect the city's interest. Honestly, I also felt like the price wasn't that much. Mr. Semino, I do not feel has a speciality in data centers and things, so I think that, and I talked to Mr. Semino, and he felt like this was also, he didn't feel like there was a conflict or a problem with going ahead and doing something like this. So it would be $8,000 to contract for that service. I looked over the contract itself, and it's pretty standard, actually. There's really nothing that I would add to this unless we wanted to put in some type of a proviso that they couldn't also be representing a data center.
Well, you kind of found out that they couldn't do the back door because you had another idea, and they said we can't, because they can't be beholden to two,
Right.
two different, so no, I don't think so. And this firm is more involved with helping legal services for government agencies, and that's, and I just to give you a little background, I attended a workshop regarding some economic development tax incentive law changes that were pretty dramatic. Apparently, they're going to be rolled back, but it's going to take a few months. But I followed up with this particular lawyer, Jeff Harris from Bricker, Graydon, and Wyatt, and in our conversation, data centers came up, as well as the fact that I mentioned that I was interested in providing a workshop for council or others in the city who serve on boards that are, subject to public records and open meetings acts. And we run into this all the time, right? Do we have to have 3 readings for resolutions? What's the difference between a resolution and an ordinance? All those little intricacies that we struggle with, I think would be helpful. So this contract and that amount includes workshop.
So have we thought about asking if the township wanted to be a part of this?
I already.
Again, they couldn't because
Right.
this agency, this law firm
Okay.
couldn't serve 2 masters
Gotcha.
at the
You're
same
already
time.
where my head was when he approached me
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
this. I said, let's reach out to the township, see if we could share cost on this, and he did reach out, and
Yeah.
their feedback was, is that something that they couldn't do?
Okay.
They could contract with them separately.
Which I would encourage anybody.
I think they were sharing some legal fees maybe with another community close to them at one point on this. So I don't want to speak wrong, but anyways, I think this is a good thing we need. We do need a specialist, Carmen, in this. So I am for this. We have a lot of things that are coming up. A lot of information that we need to educate ourselves on and also protect our residents and our community, making sure we're on the right page. So I'm okay supporting this.
No, go ahead. You're good.
Mrs. Lodato, question. The contract's for $8,000. The workshop, has it been defined? Is it a 1-hour workshop? Is it a 3-hour workshop? What is the workshop going to be? And I saw that the hourly rate on the attorney that put this together is $450 per hour. So if we just are doing 8,000, we got about 16 hours out of it. So I just was wondering, the workshop will probably be one that they've created already to share with other people, which is fine. There's some economy when they do that.
They're willing to customize it.
Okay.
That's one of the benefits of going with them rather
Okay.
than some other agencies that have canned presentations. Yeah, but he didn't think, Jeff did not think that the 8,000 we would even reach that. But, and I don't know how they do billable hours. I mean, you broke it down by clock
Yeah.
hours.
6-minute increments.
Yeah.
I'm for it though, Carmen.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea.
And me as well. I think that this supports us with making an informed choice when it comes to things down the road. We don't know so much. It's such a new thing, so any support we can have.
And if anybody's done research on the data center issues, which I'm sure a lot of us have at this point, is that you could just fall down the rabbit hole and never recover yourself. trying to figure out how things are changing and where the moving parts are and what leaves us legally susceptible. And it's well worth it to me to not only pay to have somebody to make sure that we're protected from that, but also throw in a useful workshop. All right, so we're good with moving that forward? All right. Man, I thought that was gonna be a longer conversation. All right, so rezoning Reed Memorial Library parcels to C1. This is something that came in 2025 to Planning Commission to consolidate the plots of land that the library is currently sitting on into a C1. It passed unanimously in Planning Commission, and then council held off on it for some concerns about some legal entanglements. But it is proposed now that this is the best way moving forward is to resolve this issue. And it has been functioning as a C1 since 2004.
Right.
Well, it's mixed. I think it's residential. Is,
No, but it's,
The C1 allows residential in with it.
I think the part they want to rezone is residential, the
Right,
parking lot.
correct, it's currently that, yes.
There's like a comment or a question.
Yes.
My name is Cynthia Miller. As you know, I have a vested interest in this piece of property, being a close neighbor. The last time Bob Finney personally, he said it was on behalf of the library, brought it before the Planning Commission and then before council. It was voted down by this council, and I appreciate that because we are in a federal lawsuit. My question, I guess, part of it is a process question. This is probably for Rob. How did this come to be on the Planning Committee agenda? I know there have been some rule changes, and if there's a question, Chelsea, who's not here, would assign it to a committee. How did this come to be on the committee now?
Well, I will say it this way. Mr. Finney brought it back, and we met in executive session with legal counsel, and
Yes,
so.
with Nick Brown. I like
So
him.
then.
He's cute.
That's, I mean, I
He's a
can't
good
tell you more
attorney,
about
but
what.
He is a hired gun for the city, and it is his opinion he would have given you.
Well,
He's not the court that decides this.
no, and it hasn't been decided yet.
Good.
But,
I would ask council, again, to table this until the federal lawsuit and adjacent lawsuits are finished. This is not over. I live in Ravenna too. I do not want anyone personally or this council to be a lawsuit magnet. I don't want that to happen. I want this to be tabled indefinitely. This should be over within a year, I hope. It depends on appeals. If it's appeals, it could be 2 years, it could be 3 years. Ravenna has been incorporated for 227 years. We're not going anywhere. I want to live the rest of my life here. I don't want problems with the city. I don't want problems in the city. I want this to be successful. There is no reason to rush this. There's no reason to change it. That R4 is a buffer between Main Street, Commercial 1, and 3 surrounding neighborhoods of residential to the east, to the west, and the north. If I understand the comprehensive master plan, if this becomes all C1, there is a possibility that a future council or administration would recommend that this be part of the urban plan, which means a 0 setback on that property. We don't know if the library will stay in Ravenna. We don't know that. They have other property in other parts of the county. If they move, that's a commercial property. There could be anything going in back there. That's a possibility. I have found in every attorney that I've found in my case, I have, from your side, from the library side, and from my side, have praised City Council for their decision to hire an attorney to look at Locust Lane. Years ago, before all this started, as a matter of fact, I have a note here. The case was not filed until January 6, 2025. The mayor's veto of the attorney was in the summer of 2024. Had that been looked at, we probably would not be, I would say we would not be here. It could have been resolved. The attorney that you just mentioned, legal consulting, they're charging $8,000 for a workshop. $5,000 perhaps to this same set of attorneys that deal with municipal issues could have found these problems immediately. They did not. They were not hired because the mayor decided to veto this. Council could have revisited it and overridden his veto. I've come to know all of you. I don't know any of you very well, but I've come to watch you, and I think you try to do what your conscience demands. And I didn't put anyone, even members that I know better, on the spot to try to do that, because I think it would have hurt your feelings to hurt his feelings. I think there's a lot of personalities here. So basically what I'm asking is for the council members, and specifically the committee members, put this on hold. There's no hurry. We have plenty of time. Nick is a good man. He is an advocate for the city, but my belief is he's on the wrong side. And I can't see rezoning this piece other than being targeted and retaliatory and spot zoning. I can't see it any other way, and I have to deal with that reality in my life and wherever that reality takes me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have a comment? Mr. Selenius?
Besides the active lawsuit, if you're looking at this as part of the comprehensive plan, it was brought to my attention that they're recommending rezoning my neighborhood to commercial C1. It's cut off from Main Street. It's isolated. There's very little parking. I can't imagine anybody would want to locate a business there. But my point is, before you make any changes based on the comprehensive plan, I think members of council, the administration, and the public should thoroughly scrutinize the comprehensive plan. So I'm also hoping you will table this. Thank you.
To Mr. Selenius's second point, there was an email sent about that today, and I contacted Todd Peets to provide some clarification on the comprehensive master plan. I looked at the future land use map, and I could not confirm that. It did not look like it was a C1 based on that, but the problem with the map is that it doesn't have, you have to kind of blow the image up and really try to count the little alleys and things like that. I just want to make it clear, and if we need to amend the master plan to make sure the neighborhood beyond the library is protected, I'm fine with that. But I wanted to work with Todd Peets to clear up any ambiguity, because the future land use map, while I know that we requested corridors to be identified so it didn't look like Skittles were thrown at the map, we also maybe need to have one for reference that clearly identifies direction and streets on it as a matter of another issue. But how does the committee feel about moving this forward? I'm in favor of moving it forward.
I'm in favor of moving it forward.
Still have some questions about it. I'm okay moving it forward, but I still would like to get some questions answered from Todd Peets, and also protecting the neighborhoods is, a #1 priority. I do understand that this cleans things up from the attorney's perspective. So, yeah, I just would like some more information, so.
I feel confident that Mr. Peets will be able to provide us with some more clarification. And if we need to, we can amend the comprehensive master plan, because that's not a permanent, it's a living document.
Right.
So we were told that this is already acting as this,
Yes.
correct? So it's already acting as a C1.
Right.
So this is just legalizing what is already happening currently.
And to my understanding, it was the initial intention that why this has lapsed for so long is because it was assumed that it was done in 2003, 2004. So this is just going back and correcting an error that's been functioning as a C1 all of this time. To me, it's housekeeping, but it's the way I look at it.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move this one forward.
Yeah.
Part of the comprehensive plan is making sure that Ravenna neighborhoods are strong. Part of the comprehensive plan is making sure that residents feel comfortable buying and rehabbing houses in the city of Ravenna. You've allocated money, or going to allocate money to fix up some houses. Perhaps you should start around the library, those circling the library, and make it you want to have a walkable city, an urban design, that's a good place to start. But getting someone to buy that house across from a C1 that potentially could have a 0 setback is going to be a hard sell.
And we'll take,
I really don't see, it has not been functioning as a C1 at all. It has not. That is a residential neighborhood. It has always been a residential neighborhood. And I knew the word housekeeping would come up during this meeting. It's not a housekeeping issue. It truly is not. If it were a housekeeping issue, we would leave it at R4, because the rest of the neighborhood around there is residential. And again, like I said, there are avenues. I can't see this as anything other than spot zoning. On 3 sides, this is residential.
well, I was not here in 2003, 2004, so I can only go by.
However,
the
you were
documents
on the
that I have.
planning commission,
Correct, and I have no problem, and I still have no problem moving this forward.
right?
So
You
we
were
are-
on the planning commission
Correct.
that voted to allow the projects, and you knew at that time, from the materials in front of you, that it was R4. It's not a housekeeping issue. It's not something that was overlooked. You knew it was R4. The mayor knew it was R4.
I
Bob Finney
think
knew it
at
was
this
R4.
point,
Yeah,
on advice of counsel, your lawyer should be talking to our lawyer. This should not be going on.
This should be going on here,
Okay.
sir.
well, we're going to move on to the next item, which is going to be the space requirements for multifamily units. This one, this is going to be a discussion. I was looking at our code when it comes to multifamily units. It's pretty vague. It just says that as long as there is, and I quote, livable space, but it doesn't provide any quantification for what constitutes livable space. And I think with some of the multi-units, we're trying to avoid people that are cramming these separate units that are really too much for one space, and things are getting out of control with the upkeep. I would like more time to look into this, so I could maybe have more like a fancy presentation like Rob did. That would be nice. With some of those things, and look into how other cities have resolved that. One of the things that was attractive for me when I was looking at other cities is that requiring that multifamily units have like enclosed places for garbage cans and dumpsters, because if you have 3 or 4 units, you're gonna have 3 or 4 garbage cans, and so it creates more of an eyesore. So making sure those types of things that we just don't have, and so that's a discussion that I would like to have, and I know that people have a lot of feelings about these multifamily units, and there are ways that we can address the issue, and not just to protect, what we talk about, the beautification aspect, but also for the protection of the people renting them.
Carmen, I want to interrupt real quick if I could and tell you, I ran into one of our police officers today, and he saw this on our agenda, and he's like, kudos. He's like, I think that is a fantastic idea. He said that he has noticed since starting here the cleanup of Ravenna. He said, you know, I know it's hard for people to understand that, you know, their perception is, you know, Ravenna's going down, Ravenna's going down. He goes, but I can honestly tell you, in the years that I've been here into what I'm seeing now, the cleanup is getting much better. And I know after a lot that I've gone through this week with cleanup in neighborhoods, you know, I was feeling hopeless. But, you know, he really said that this right here is huge. And I think especially how things get put through as conditional to planning, and then they get to zoning, and zoning approves them. You know, we have things that we set in place where we do not want any more multi-housing. And, you know, real estate agents don't bother to check the codes or see what's going on, and they sell these houses to these investors from out of town. And again, one recently that had passed about a year ago now is a hot mess that zoning allowed to come here. And now, again, we're having, you know, an individual wanting to come here and have multi-family and another conditional use. And I think that, you know, putting multi-family in a home in a residential area where you're going to have multi-family and the yard space is so limited, to me, it makes sense to have an adequate amount of like what we're talking about and what you're bringing to the committee. It's needed, and that might be the one piece that could save a neighborhood, that could save, you know, a home from being, you know, a destructive piece in a neighborhood. So,
Well, and I know because I face it.
Yep.
Because I live behind some multi-families that were single families that went to multifamily. And it's really disappointing how that's come about and how those are taken care of. I did see something else what some cities do, that if the owner of the multifamily doesn't live in the city, that they're required to contract with a manager, some type of a management agency that is accessible. So you're not just dealing with somebody that lives off-site, because sometimes these investors live out of state.
Yes, and
so
our
it's
building department's
difficult to
having
resolve
problems.
conflict. So we could write things in the code that they would be also required to have somebody that was accessible. They would have to work with an agency to manage those issues. And like I said, I understand that, you know, and we have this goal for affordable housing, although I would argue that my mortgage is way cheaper than most rent. And that's probably everybody's case, but we need to have it there. But again, just like the storage unit discussion, there's a way to do it in a responsible, controlled, objectively quantified manner that Planning Commission can look at it, and they could look at the plans, and they can put things into the calculator and say, no, I'm sorry, this doesn't meet our requirements. And again, it's for the renter's protection too. You know, that's frustrating when you are a renter in those places, and it's hard when it comes to upkeep and issues with other tenants. I don't know if any of you experienced that when you were first moving out, living in a place, and maybe you kept your place up, but your neighbors didn't. And so ensuring that those things are addressed for everybody's protection. So I would like to bring this back next month with a presentation, and then I will identify the communities and what the suggestions were to quantify the square footage. I just don't like it that it says livable space, because
It's so vague.
that definition varies depending on who you talk to. It does identify there has to be a bathroom and there has to be 2 forms of egress, but, I mean, an egress could be a tiny basement window. So, I mean, we have to take a look at that and address that pretty expeditiously. I would like to be able to present something more detailed next month and be able to pass that to the committee of the whole.
Sounds good to me.
Yep, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, so design review, conflict of interest. This had to do with reopening some of the discussion on modifying our DRC guidelines. I don't want to get into the reasons or the impetus, but let's just say that whatever happened at the last meeting got me to thinking that if you own a building in the historic district, that it's probably a terrible idea and a conflict of interest to also sit on design review and make decisions for the other businesses around you. Can I finish what I'm saying? And I promise I will get to you. I feel, and that's something, when we talked about this back in the beginning of the year, I was unaware of who owned the buildings and who was on there, or I would have addressed that then. The conflict that arose with one of the businesses and one of the owners, really, I feel like I would like to use that as an opportunity to reevaluate that conflict so that other businesses, I mean, what if a competitor came in? What if a person who owns the building and the competitor moved next door and now they're responsible for making decisions about that person's business? I just think that there's too many negative outcomes that can come from that. Okay.
Before you, can I just ask a simple question? Are you talking about owners of property within the historic district?
Yes.
Okay, what about residential owners?
What do you mean?
Would they fall in the same category and not be?
In the historic district?
There are some properties that
Oh,
are
there's quite a
homes.
few. If
Right.
someone owned property in the historic district, are you suggesting they should not be on the design review commission?
I don't think residential's the same as business, because residential, they're not trying to make money.
Right. That's where
It's
I'm
a difference.
concerned
And
with.
it's still a business. Oh, you mean residing?
Homeowners.
I see what you're saying.
Your
Thank you.
homeowners
Yeah,
are for
yeah.
the best interest because they live there.
Right.
But I do understand that if it's a business during the long road,
Bless you.
excuse me, I think that, looking at it, you're looking at it for future. Up until now, we haven't had any conflicts where that has happened. But I think down the road, you never know who could buy a building, who could end up there. I think it makes sense. And yeah, I do agree.
Now, I promise, Mr. Selenius.
Most of you on council should remember, I gave each of you 6 pictures of signs that were put up on buildings in the historic district owned by members of the Design Review Commission. And to the best of my knowledge, they did not apply for a permit. They did not pay the $100 fee that everybody else has to pay. They did not wait and get approval from the Design Review Commission. So that's kind of unfair competition. So I agree that it's a conflict of interest for the business owners.
Thank you, Mr. Selenius. Mrs. Miller, did you still want to, Mrs. Miller?
I guess this is a process question again. What is the process to submit a video to city council and show
There
it
is
on the
no,
council?
there is no process.
How did a private dispute between 2 private individuals on private property come to this council, through which member, and be broadcast on the council's YouTube public channel? How did that happen?
It didn't come through any individual. It's, our delegations are open to the public.
Yes, I had a delegation, Rob, if you recall, on public property with 2 public entities, the library and the city, and I stood in public with my phone and videotaped the problems we have with delivery on Locust Lane since this project.
Okay.
Chelsea accepted the video, did not show it on YouTube. I don't know if the council members all saw it. That was before a lawsuit was filed and before the mayor submitted a veto against hiring an attorney to look at my case. So what is the process? I submitted a video, and it was not shown.
Why didn't,
This man plugged his computer in and
Right.
showed a video of a private dispute with a private party on private property to the entire community. Now, I know this man. His name is Mr. Hummel. He's a deeply decent person. He's deeply ashamed that he lost his temper. And I am sure that there is not one person in this room, in this audience, and not on the camera, that has not lost their temper. And they would not want it on camera shown at the Ravenna City Council YouTube. I think that was deeply unfair. I think you owe him an apology, believe it or not. And I think that really reflects badly on the city of Ravenna that this could happen.
So we weren't talking about any particular person or bringing up any names in this conversation. The
I'll bring
point
up
of
the name.
this.
Everyone knows that it was Eric.
Okay, hold on
Well,
one
now
second.
they do.
So now we
know.
do.
They did know, and there's not one person here that didn't know. There isn't. If you're honest, you knew.
No,
But we don't
Yes,
know
you
who's,
do.
but we don't know who's watching the meeting, and so we were protecting that.
I don't. And so I guess my point is now we are focusing on,
Right.
the purpose of this committee and this item is to have a discussion about the Design Review Commission and reviewing the guidelines, and if
Right.
that's something that we want to move forward.
And the
And what
catalyst
hold on,
was-
please. Can I please finish? Because I
Yes,
am
you
on this
may.
committee as well. The purpose of our committee is to have a discussion about this particular item and to decide if we are going to move this forward. What has happened in the past is not what we are discussing. We are focusing on, do we need to reopen the design review guidelines? This is something that we missed when we reviewed it before. It was something that we did not think of when we reviewed it before.
And
And
sometimes you
this
don't know
is
to
something
think
I
of it till a
disagree with my
problem
friend
comes up.
Larry on that. I think that you have skin in the game if you own property in the historic district. You have the right and you have the responsibility to be on the design review. Do the right thing. If there's something wrong, be involved in that. Otherwise, what you're doing, if you do take those qualifications off of the design review membership, you are basically telling people, you own this property, you have to follow what we say you have to do, and you have no recourse.
And that is fabulous feedback. We are certainly just starting this conversation and just bringing it up. This is the first time we're having a conversation about it. And it is just the committee members. We're just deciding whether we want to move it on to the larger group or not.
And again, the catalyst was that video. That's what Ms. Lodato just said. I think you owe this man an apology. This is a deeply decent man, one of the most intelligent men I have ever met in my life and the most organized. And that video made it seem as if this man was responsible for all the empty storefronts in the city of Ravenna. He walked up down the street and he saw 20 empty storefronts. There's a lot more going on here. There are a lot of reasons, both administrative and council, that there are reasons that there are empty storefronts in Ravenna. That is not this man's fault. And that was the implication from his presentation.
Yeah, and no one up
And I
here
guess
council
the
is saying
worst
that,
part of it
so.
was, for me, is that a member of this council was complicit in this ambush, and it was an ambush.
he has a First Amendment right to present that
Yes, he
information, just
does.
as
He
you,
has a
if you
First
wanted to
Amendment
present,
right. However,
cutting me off.
putting that video on the Ravenna City Council YouTube is a big difference.
I can- I
don't think so. I don't
He
think
can
it
Let me-
work
let
people
me-
in his shop all day, be fine.
Let me clarify for the record that there was no concerted effort, there was no planned ambush or conspiracy. It was initially two people on council that went to go look at a problem, and if anything, I felt ambushed, sitting there and watching that whole exchange take place. I've never, ever seen anything like that in my life.
You've never seen anyone lose their temper.
I've never seen anybody stand there in front of a business owner and two city council members and speak to them in the way that we were spoken to. So I don't want to drag this out. I would like to know from my committee if we are moving this item on for the committee of the whole to consider on this matter.
I'm okay with moving it forward to discuss at the committee of the whole.
So, I just need clarification of what you're moving forward. Are you moving forward
if you-
a chain?
That if you own a business in the historic business district, that you cannot serve on the DRC.
A business.
Right,
So we meet in a week, right?
correct.
And I'm trying to think, we've talked about the legislative process but in order to do this, we need to change the code,
Okay.
right? So can we have language that says what you're saying?
So are you
Because
saying- Right.
council can't just, pass something in concept. We have to have something concrete.
Okay, so
to
are you
pass.
saying that this would probably be, we're probably not going to be able to get this on until August?
I'm asking you if you, well,
I'm fine with doing that.
because sometimes the devil's in the details. I would prefer, in a case like this, that there actually be language for the
Right.
committee of the whole, so we know what we're considering to
Can we
put on
put
the
the-
agenda.
can we-
If you can do it in a week, that's fine. You
Probably
could,
not, to be honest with you. So could we
Okay.
consider this for the August committee of the whole?
Yeah.
Would you want to keep it in committee and then move it forward?
she's talking about skipping the next, I've never heard of that. That's kind of a
Yeah,
unique
that's what I
approach.
mean. That way it would give you more time for discussion in
Right, but it
committee.
doesn't have to come back to committee.
Well, and possibly but if we move it on to next month, you
Right.
could have something prepared to share in committee.
Correct.
And then we could move that
Okay,
forward
so
from there.
we'll
Yeah, that
keep-
would probably be
keep
a
it on-
more-
We'll keep this on for committee.
Okay.
And then we can move it forward to then the August committee of the whole, if
Is
it
it-
moves out.
Is it okay to speak at this time, to ask a question? Personally, my opinion on that is that we should not be changing this on this conflict of interest case. However, if we're looking at it, I think we need to look at all of the current guidelines for the design review committee, because multiple positions talk about whether they live in the city or in the county.
Right.
There's multiple criteria for
We
limiting.
eliminated that. You have to be a city resident from now on.
Okay, so it's just a lot to look at, and without specific language of what we're talking about doing, I think it's a problem.
I agree, and that's, I'm not saying we can't do it next week, I don't want to put pressure on you to do it by then, but we do need to have that as part of, the consideration for the entire committee.
And I'm sorry, I don't believe that we have actually taken enough time to talk about the ramifications of if we limit this. There's a lot of unintended consequences to changing that around, and I think we need to look at all of those factors before we take any action.
And that's why I think it's good to keep it in committee and talk about it. And I think that with different recent events, it just brought attention to some of the things that have been said to council in the past. And I think it's worth looking into and looking at all the objections that could happen, pros, cons. And, but I do, see that it being a good thing. So I would like to get more information. So I think we should leave it in committee at this point. It's my opinion.
Okay.
I think the good thing about that too is next month, we're all,
I can have specific language.
well, that and everyone has some time to think about it and kind of take a look at the DRC, kind of see what needs to be reviewed and discussed, so that we can have a more detailed conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, well, is there a management update?
Just as a follow-up on this, I think what you're doing is looking at going back to the document that we just got passed.
Yes.
And on face value, there would be at least two other people that would not be allowed to be there. And I'll have to go back and look at the final thing. But it's specific about trying type of field
Right.
in there, and they may have a business in town, but they may not live here with that. And you really narrow the field with the way those are described. But I looked at this some today, but I need to spend more time with it too, so I think it's a good idea to wait and see, because you're going to be changing the dynamics of it.
Or maybe even if somebody has a specialty, like an architect, not having them be a voting member if they own the building, but
That would be a reasonable accommodation too, to have the expertise there but not be a voting member.
And that was in the original document.
Yeah,
so,
That'd be. done
lots of
that way,
conversation to
so-
be had on this.
Yeah.
For sure.
okay.
I knew I wasn't done with those DRC things yet. They have returned to haunt me. All right. Is there any other management update?
No, thank you.
All right, so we are dismissing, oh God, this was a long one, sorry, at 7:40.
Mine now.
All right, 7:40, I'd like to call the Finance Committee to order. The first item is approval of the updated premium-only plan. This has to do with the healthcare plan, I believe,
Yes,
Ms.
and
Lawrence?
this does not change anything with our benefits. This is simply a document that we are supposed to have on file at the city. It is a Section 125 IRS requirement. It just gives us the authority to deduct pre-tax deductions from our employees for healthcare premiums and any other pre-tax items. Really a housekeeping item. We do a healthcare compliance meeting every year, and it was brought up that we needed to have this updated and put on file with the city.
Who is the healthcare compliance meeting with?
Fidelity, our brokers, our healthcare brokers, and they go through all aspects of healthcare compliance. It keeps us very, in compliant with, there's a lot of rules and laws out there that we on our own probably wouldn't be aware of, like these ones. Other than this one, we did very well with our, Fidelity's been with us for a while, so they're very good at keeping us in line with all of our requirements.
So basically, it's just allowing us to do what we're already doing,
Correct.
which is letting them pay that 125 amount
On a
prior to pre-tax
Yes,
basis.
correct.
Okay, which is a
Correct.
procedure we've already had in place.
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Is this an annual requirement as we continue forward?
Once it's on file, we are okay, unless there's something that changes with the IRS codes.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Lodato, Dr. Calfee, okay to move this forward?
Yes.
Okay, next item is ADP Resources Agreement. I believe this is a new software
Yes,
package?
and this might take a little bit of time, and I'm sorry I don't have a professional display like Rob. I need your help, Rob, with that next time. So just a little bit of background on this, and I talked a little bit about it in May when I talked to you all. We really were looking for a time and attendance system, and so Jonathan's been doing some background work on that for quite some time now. Right now, we are very manual. We have Excel timesheets that come from all the departments. We're manually entering everything. We manually do everything for payroll in the background, very manual process. We're very accurate, I will say, but there's always corrections, just nuances, a lot of communication to get that payroll accurate. Compliance, we do a lot of research and things like that, again, to stay compliant. So what really prompted me to look into time and attendance systems is the One Big Beautiful Bill and the overtime premium deduction. So a lot of cities are now looking at time and attendance systems. So initially, Jonathan had done a lot of this legwork. We use Right Stuff software for the police department already for their scheduling, and he has a proposal here. I did not send these out to everybody, but I will. This is one that, and this is just for a time and attendance. So this would just take the clocks in and clock outs for everybody. This is $13,500 minimum a year with a $17,000 consulting, installation, training, plus some other miscellaneous costs. So that's just for a time and attendance. Then Time Clock Plus is another one. It's $8,900 a year, plus another $14,000 for implementation, so $22,000. But it also does not talk to our current finance system, so it really wouldn't work in the long run. But I just wanted to give you some comparisons of what we were looking at, so you had some idea of what a real basic system, because I did initially want, just started looking at that. So after we were talking, I said, you know, I really, if we're going to do something like this, because it will replace our authority payroll system, which also has a portal for people to log on and see some data and things like that, let's look at some other things because, you know, we can get a lot more robust payroll support with some other companies. So ADP came through, they came in, they sat down with Heather and myself, Jonathan, a couple finance people, did a demonstration. And you have a quote in your packet. I'll go over that a little bit, but I just want to tell you kind of a few things that they will provide for us beyond just time and attendance. And a lot of people probably are a little more familiar with ADP Workforce. A lot of people have probably either had a paycheck from them in the past or have at least heard of them. So for human resource benefits, this stuff is from Heather. Currently, she just uses Indeed when she goes out and posts jobs. It's free. She just does the free one. But ADP, part of this package would allow her to do job postings across multiple job boards for no extra cost. So it would give a lot more exposure. And those kind of postings can cost thousands of dollars on their own. It would also help her to track all of those and do offer letters and everything electronically and smooth that process out for her. It would also improve onboarding with those hires then because they would help us with all of that paperwork. Right now, we have a lot of duplicate entry. Once we hire somebody, then we have to go through all the process of all the paperwork, and then we're entering it again. We're doing all that entry again. Instead of us doing the entry, you have the employee entering all of that into a portal, and it saves a lot of the inaccuracy of those things. Also, better candidate experience. They'll do a lot of the verification, like the Social Security number I-9, a lot of those things. They would also handle benefit administration, which some of that's like when we have our annual healthcare renewals, they would help us with a lot of that kind of stuff too. For finance, there's tons of things, obviously, that it would help us with time spent entering all of those timesheets, checking, correcting, reviewing. One of the big ones for us this year is we have spent, at the beginning of this year and end of last year, over 150 hours, we figured, with overtime premium deduction and figuring those out for 2025. We've just started with 26. We've spent probably about half of that so far, but it's just such a manual process for this new overtime premium deduction. ADP would support that completely, and this requirement does go through 2028 right now with our current government bill, so, and that could be extended. We'll see. So they would completely handle that with this time and attendance system. They would also do all of our year-end processing, which, as you know, the beginning of the year is kind of crazy for any finance department with W-2s, 1099s, ACA reporting, and then we also are starting into our audit, so you got all of that thrown on top of that too. They would streamline all of that. We would still be doing a lot of review, obviously, of all of these documents and all the reports. But to me, this would give us an opportunity to have more statistical reporting. You'd be able to pull specialized reports, that kind of thing. For departments across the board, it would help them. They operate on, some of them have old time clock systems. Tim can probably even speak to what they use at some of the plants. This would help them upgrade to a tablet to log in, and there is a mobile app that people could log in. When you're in proximity to the plant, they could log in. You couldn't log in from home.
Are we still using punch cards?
Close to log in.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But that would help. So, and this would also help our department heads in the way of, currently they do a lot of manual timesheet preparation from time cards into Excel sheets. They aren't always the best at doing all those, Excel spreadsheets, so it would help us with that as well. Right now, we do leave sheets manually. People would be able to do leave sheets on a system that would be more transparent to everybody. We'd be able to see it a little bit more too and see what leave people are taking, track that a little bit better. So overall, you get a pretty good idea of why I feel like this would offer a little bit better of a offering for us than just a simple time and attendance system. ADP offered a 3-year plan, and for the first 3 years, we would get 12 months free if we commit to a 3-year plan. So it would be an estimated annual $31,531.20, and that is with the implementation costs included in with that. So that's a total of 3-year of $94,593.60. Now, one thing I did go through, and I will put some of this together and do a little bit better of a presentation, not as good as Rob's, but I will provide something. Just with some hours and a basic rate for my department. And when I went through like hours of entry, you know, for a pay, 40 hours, department heads, maybe 8 hours, our back end of payroll, 10 hours, but maybe a total of 78 hours on a given payroll. That might be light, might be a little over. I'm gonna do a little bit better of a. So when I looked at that for 26 pays, plus the savings we'd have with authority payroll, I'm looking at $91,471, just when you're looking at the time that I'm seeing an efficiency changes that we could make to make this better. So in the long run, I really feel like that would be time that we could spend better on other things that sometimes we don't do as well as we could in finance. So with that, does anybody have any questions, kind of what?
No, I think this is a great set of software for at least this quote here, for all the different values that it gives you, and the opportunity for so many of our department heads to get so much more clerical work off of them. Like an estimate of $91,000 is probably pretty fair for the amount of time that's invested, but it doesn't speak to all, you know, a good portion of those hours coming back and the value we can add in by having more capacity. Like, we
I
have a-
think most places use something like this
Yes.
now, especially with the amount of employees we have. I think that it makes sense, and also if it's going to help you guys get more statistical stuff done,
Yeah, that would
I
help.
think that's even more important,
Yeah.
because I know the amount of work your department alone is right now been going through. It's a lot.
Yeah, this is an example of cities that already use it. Streetsboro uses ADP, I've been talking to them. Cleveland Heights, Beechwood, Middleburg Heights, East Cleveland, Seven Hills, Lakewood, Berea. I can't read that one, sorry. But there are 22 government entities here in Northeast Ohio that do use ADP. So that gives you an idea.
The others probably use some other platform, like we use Paychex Flex, but it's the same thing as ADP. Does this
Yeah.
functionally the same as ADP?
In all honesty, you know, I've used ADP in previous employment, and you know, there are, you know, after 3 years, we'll see where we're at. I mean, there are other platforms, and you know, that's when you can renegotiate or look at. I mean, I did at one point in a previous career have to go from ADP to someplace else because I couldn't cut the costs down. So, you know, we could keep a very good eye on that, and they have a robust amount of other things that they could provide too. I mean, I tried to cut the cost down. There is a possibility that right now we're looking at some time clocks for some of the plants that think they still need them. Jonathan is working with them if we can go to a tablet system where they can log in instead of an actual time clock. That is only $2.08 a person per month, and it would be a cheaper option. So there is possibility we could save a little bit on the time clock portion of their quote, which would even reduce it a little bit more. So.
When you talked about the savings, you talked about the number of hours that go into doing payroll, et cetera. Under our current setup, are people in your department having to do overtime to get the work done that is being done?
Typically, no, where the overtime is coming in usually for our department is beginning of the year when we're doing W-2s, and end of the year when we're doing special payouts and some of that kind of stuff. Healthcare enrollment, we have to spend a lot of time. The overtime this year has come in, and last year is with this overtime premium deduction calculations, because we've spent time outside of work, in work, you know, staying over. But we try not to, we really do.
And then after the promotional fee amount, at the end of 3 years, do you have any idea of what it's going to jump to?
So it would go up to 44,000.
44,000, yeah,
years.
okay.
And that's why I said that's when we'd have to revisit and see.
Yeah,
You
and
know,
this
and
quote-
there's a possibility of cutting, you know, could cut out the benefits administration say. That's something I have added in there right now. There are a few things that, you know, we could
Okay.
skim off of there to save the money.
I still think that's worth consideration, especially considering how many part-time employees that are just seasonal that we go through just for the Parks Department alone, so.
Yeah.
I think that just needs justifying.
And one key point for me is they are state audit ready with their reports, with their compliance. They, you do reach out to some of these kind of companies, and the smaller ones are not, and right now we do have the state auditors in here, so that's obviously very important.
Will having ADP help reduce any of the costs that we have associated with the firm that handles our GAP? God, we did this a few months ago, 3 months ago, maybe.
Zupka?
Yeah.
Yeah, it really can't. I mean, that's gap preparation. That really doesn't, we're providing them stuff from these softwares. They would help, ADP would help us provide, well, we'd pull the customized reports from there, no different than how we're providing the information now.
And then I saw that the expiration was June 25th on this. Did they communicate?
She's holding this quote for me, so right now, that's, with this committee, if we move this forward, I'll work with her on her holding this price as long as she can, so we can get this through. You know how that all goes with those kind of things. I don't think it'll be a problem.
I'll make a quick comment for this. I am familiar with how this works because I've just had a part-time job for a while with a couple different places that use something similar, and it was very efficient because you're eliminating some of these processes that save quite a bit of time.
Yeah.
And that was some years ago that was used, and
Yeah.
it wasn't that difficult to understand the efficiencies of going that direction.
Yeah. Rob, do you have any questions?
No.
Right now?
What does the committee think? You will move this forward?
Yes, move forward.
All right. The next item is, back to my agenda.
Then and now.
Then and now certificates. Just
Yes, and I'll
housekeeping.
provide the data next week. I talked to Rob about, we'll talk about it at the committee, but it's better if I wait till next week to pull the data. We're supposed to approve it within, the payments within 30 days, so that gives one more week of pulling the data. So I'll have that before the committee of the whole for you.
Yeah, this is Tammy getting in line with our legislative process, wanting to make sure everything is done on a
Yeah, I checked
timely
with
basis.
Rob on that before I did this.
So,
because, yeah,
yeah, so we'll have the actual certificates for committee of the whole, but we're good to pass this on?
Yes.
Okay. Last item on my agenda, I wanted to talk about, because we've talked around this issue quite a bit. We've not really nailed down what it means. So when it comes to providing funding for our new safety facilities in City Hall, there's been talk about, well, the city needs to have, to quote one of our members, skin in the game, that, we should be using city finances to help support or supplement, assuming we are able to pass the ballot initiative and increase our income tax to pay for these facilities. My concern is, what does that actually mean? Because, we could, but the intent of the ballot initiative is to fund this fully, right? We're going to collect, and I know Bob brought to our attention that he's concerned that maybe it's going to cost more than we initially planned, time is passing, but then there's that other consultant that says we can cut back, and that's all kind of up in the air too. But I guess what would that look like is kind of my question for tonight. Not that we have anything tangible to move on for City Council to consider, but I think it'd just be helpful to have a brief discussion about what that would look like. And before I just open it up for suggestions, and I know some suggestions have already been made, one idea that I think our fire chief brought up was, well, we could pay more on the loan each year and maybe shorten term, right? And I think that's a great idea. But my concern, again, I think about the process. Well, if we get this thing passed and it's for 30 years, and we pay it off in 25, what do we do with how do we take back those 5 years? Do we have to go back and pass another ballot initiative to take it off? I don't even know. Did you, by the way, did you look into that?
Tomorrow I'm meeting with
Oh, okay.
Amanda, so I.
We may
did
have an
ask
answer to
her.
that. I think that's a fairly, reasonable approach to this. But aside from that particular way of supplementing these facilities, what, because I know other people of council have mentioned we should consider this. What would it look like, is what I'm asking. What other ideas would be on the table? How would we fund this?
So I just feel like having a conversation. Our residents are asking, what has the city done so far as planning for this? Instead of saying, hey, you know what, let's build a new building in 5 years. Like, what have we done? So looking at monies that we have coming in. So the taxes from the dispensary is a prime example, right? Can we set a percentage of that aside? Is there a percentage of other funds that can be set aside? Kind of figuring that out so that we can, when residents ask us, when this comes up, well, what have we done so far? Well, the city has this much money set aside. I think that kind of helps instead of saying, hey, you're going to fund the whole thing.
What does it pay for?
What do you mean?
What do you mean?
Well, I mean, if we've got enough through paying off the loan by the income tax increase, what is this extra money paying for?
Well, it would be nice to not have to ask for so long.
Yes,
It
you're
could help pay for the
Well,
overhead.
that's getting back to what I had said
Right.
before.
You're decreasing time.
Well, okay, but okay, that was
I
one,
also-
I'm talking about other ideas.
But I also think it helps to show our residents that we are also looking at how we can save and how we can budget instead of just saying, it's like when you go to buy a car. If you don't have a down payment, it's a lot. We're kind of helping with that down payment, so it doesn't seem like it's so much. I think residents, we're all struggling right now. So for us to ask for funding is really, really hard. So, but for us to say, hey, we get it. This is what we have set aside, and kind of figuring out where we can pull that from, kind of shows our residents that the city is also invested in this, and the city wants to see this happen more than just us sitting here and saying it.
And I think that we could demonstrate that by like annually reporting, like if we did get this passed, each year we put that out in a report. This is how much money we were able to put towards past principal, towards principal on that. And
You guys keep
demonstrating.
coming back
just
to the
saying-
idea
But
I
that's
put
what
on
I'm
the
saying,
table.
but I'm just saying, like, that
Or what
idea.
the chief did. I was asking for all, because we have to figure that how do we.
Before we get on to other sources of funding, in our package that we put together, did we include capital improvement monies from our budget to go into the price of the project? Is there anything from our current capital improvements money that's going toward this project?
Right now, we have a CI reserve that I have been saving for the last 3 years, since I think probably the first time we did start talking about this, and council suggested. That was at one of our budget meetings, probably Tim, and so we did start doing that. Just from my budgeting point of view, that CI reserve, because it's not dedicated, like Rob is talking about, to that, we're doing the income tax to fund this. That money is more for contingencies at this point. It's a CI reserve that we would have to then do another ordinance to dedicate that money towards a specific purpose, like the safety center. So that's,
Currently, CI reserve is how much?
right now it's 600,000. I'm doing another 300 for
So-
2027.
300.
So that there is showing that the city is putting money in.
Yeah.
I just want to be caution using too much of the other funds too, because there's other things that we have going on that we also need to use that money for as well. So,
Yes, when I was asking about it, it was not to direct it
Oh, I
over,
know.
for sure.
Yeah, no.
Because I know there are a number of other things. I go back to the point that the amount of money in the levy that we have going on will pay for everything right now.
That's the idea, yeah.
Yeah,
the way it was
that's,
set up.
so I'm sorry to interrupt.
no, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I'm just saying, when she said that amount, I'm just saying, so
Yeah.
we have been saving money along. And again, there's been, just until recently, in the past few years, we've been able to, because of the financial situation and the growth that we have seen. So there's a lot of factors in all of this, I think, that we've been able to do in, increasing our staff in the safety forces. That was huge in growth, with both departments that we would have not been able to do a long time ago, which again is making it harder now too. The fire department is small, for the amount of people that we've increased it to. So these are all signs of growth. So again, I think that is also showing in the picture what we are contributing. We are bringing more bodies in to our community for a safer community. And I think that speaks a lot of value, personally.
I have a question. Does the county still maintain some type of interest in this building at the city hall because they need to expand courts? I do know that's an ongoing
There has always been talk.
with the county.
As far as I know, they
So
do.
what if we broke out City Hall from the project and we could take a configuration of what we've been putting aside in the CI fund, which is getting to be close to $1 million, plus whatever we would get from the county? Do we have a dollar amount of what the county was thinking of for this space?
Yeah, no.
But like getting that type of information, and then, there's also a lot to be said that whatever isn't covered by that, we could finance it, because we have a fairly stable bond rating. But I mean, I know we talked about before, like what would it take for us to get up to a AAA bond rating?
Right.
But at any point in the time, you can refinance that if we ever move from a AA to a AAA bond rating. And so that would take care of that certain aspect of the project where it would be the City Hall project, because there's a known vested interest in this particular property. I mean, I'm really disappointed about the way that the grants shook out. You can't help but view it politically, how our state and federal representatives allocated grants to different applicants where Ravenna didn't get awarded for one single thing. And we had things out there for like the engineering for this project. So, I don't know what that means, and maybe it means in terms of putting a stronger lobbying effort on elected officials about how much this means to us. I mean, we had a safety center thing denied by these people, but then money for a sprinkle park got approved.
Right.
So that to me just shows that, they're not going according to the needs of what benefits society. So maybe it's who gets in there and makes the most convincing argument. I don't know. There's lots of different things that we could be doing, but my main suggestion would be to break out City Hall from that project, isolate how much that would cost, and then use a combination of sales from this property and funds that we already have set aside, and then financing the rest of it and trying to see what we can strategize about increasing our bond rating to refinance the debt.
Well, I think the fundamental problem with that is what we passed and need to repass already includes City
Well, the
Hall.
thing is what's done is done. So if it passes, then this is an entirely moot conversation. But if your question
Okay.
is if it fails, where do we go from here?
Well, that was not my question.
Well, then it has to be, because we've already passed it to go, we've already
Right.
passed what's gonna be on the
Right.
ballot.
Well, that's kind of the crux of my point here.
So I
That
guess-
other than that first thing I mentioned about paying down the debt sooner, what are we accomplishing by throwing more money in the pot when the pot's already there to pay for everything?
And Carmen, I can't talk to you a lot about, yeah, we could go out and get a loan. There's a lot of things, but you have to have a dedicated revenue source, or our bond rating will go down. I mean, and I'm going to talk to Amanda tomorrow about some of Rob's questions that he had, so I can
That may be
schedule a meeting.
the most viable
Yeah.
way, if we can figure out what
Right.
that mechanism is, and if 25 years from now,
Yeah,
we
and
remember,
in 25
whoever's around
years,
remembers to
who's
do
young
it.
enough, we're not going to, all be here, but yes, you would have to repeal it by ballot, or
Okay.
or revise it by ballot.
Right.
The ballot language is the way it's written is for constructing and improving. So in 25 years, will there be some improvements that need to be made along the way that may be needed? Again, 25 years from now?
Yeah, well, okay. Anyway, I don't want to belabor this, and I think it's food for thought if we want to bring this back for further discussion. And I certainly think we need more information about the idea of paying it down sooner, because that may be the most viable way to construct this.
Yeah, because if you can eliminate a debt sooner,
Sorry.
it shows quite a bit.
Into the microphone.
All right, excuse me. Is there a management update, Mayor?
No, you've covered it. I was concerned with what Tammy just talked about, because the lady made it very clear that there has to be a visible path, that this is going to cover the cost of doing it. And if the path is not there and we go ahead, then our bond rating will go down.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right, then, at 8:10, I will adjourn the Finance Committee.
Okay, I'm going to start Public Health and Safety. It is 8:10. I have one item up for discussion, and it is the Village of Manaway for Dispatch Center. And Dustin is here for Jake tonight. Welcome, Dustin. I'll make this pretty brief for you so that you can leave. I just had that contract. What did I do with it? Oh, here it is. So there, we talked about it last month, and now we have the contract. I spoke with Jake, and one thing he wants us to know is that there's a lot of work that has to be done with this. So, and I'm sure you'll probably want to, say what I'm saying as well, and we'll probably have additional information tonight as well. But this is not a rush process. At the same time, we want to make sure the safety of everybody, of the residents and our residents, don't have any interruption in services. But this is a process, and again, we are not able to rush this any quicker than what we have in our contract. And I will let Dustin go on that. The contract will be in effect on June 30th, 2026 through December 31st, 2029. But it also says that in the event Ravenna agrees to dispatch services to Manaway prior to January 1st, 2027, that Manaway shall pay to Ravenna $3,968.83 per month for services. So we cannot start any sooner than January, correct? Or is it kind of changed a little bit just because I know the equipment and everything that has to get transferred over? Jake had explained to me that there's a lot that needs to be done, correct? So I'm going to go ahead and let you go ahead.
Okay. I'll do my best. And again, if there's a piece of information that you need, please let me know. Things I take for granted, you may not. So I'm happy to circle back around if need be. Ideally, the plan is to start 1 January. Now, we just met with, Jake and I, with the chief of Manaway just as recent as last week, and they indicated that they would like to make that move much sooner. As Amy mentioned, that would be great. However, the things, just to give you a highlight of some of the things that we need to cover, first of all is a simple contract and payments, which is kind of spelled out that you already have a copy of. The first thing we have to do is be able to talk to these folks. So you have the acquisition of all the radio components, and that consists of a base station of sorts, the mechanical installation of it. as well as the antennas to be able to go back and forth and reach them effectively. In addition to that, that radio software has to interface. We don't have a microphone in a single radio like kind of the good old days. Everything now is computer-based and integrated into a console. So just getting having physical control of the radio is a small component of just the communication process. We have to apply for licenses. We're exploring a new channel because currently the channel they use is shared by Garrettsville as well. In Garrettsville, dispatch is contracted through the Sheriff's Department. So what would be difficult is to have Ravenna Police handling Manaway and Portage County Sheriff handling Garrettsville all on the same channel. We'll be competing for airspace. So we're exploring that. That takes control. It takes a lot of communication through the Leeds organization, the statewide organization, to see if that's even an option, and we don't yet even know what that looks like. A little bit of the backstory, just so you're aware, we met with the mayor of Manaway months ago, and we explained all of this and the processes that are involved in making this change to them. And they knew that it would be a period of time. Things grew very quiet, and we kind of figured they moved on to somewhere else. Whether they did or didn't, doesn't matter, but they came back to us at the last minute, and now they're in semi-quasi crisis, which prompted all of this recent movement. So our commitment with them was we are going to do the best we can, but unfortunately we cannot skip processes. This has to be done correctly before we can finally make that transition. So in addition to the radio communication, we've got LEASH, which is a law enforcement database that all law enforcement uses. There has to be agreement in places and clearances, and all of those processes have to be set up. The MOU is more of what does this look like? When a call comes in, what do you expect from us? What do we expect from you? And this has to be somewhat standardized so that we're not doing unique things for one agency and not for another. It creates a lot of confusion, so that all has to be spelled out on paper. In addition, the record-keeping component is just as valuable, or even more so, of everything else. So every call that comes in goes into our Sundance-based computer-aided dispatch. So we have to have a way for them to interface into that software so they can get their times of services. Everything we do is time-stamped. That's crucial for prosecution, things like that. So they need something that interfaces with that, which they don't have. And that too is a process. None of this stuff happens overnight, and just the processes for their own entities acquiring the funding to purchase these things, let alone put them in place, takes a period of time. So those are all things that we're looking through. And then lastly is just a telephone component of this. It's not as simple as forwarding a landline. It is to a degree, but slightly more, and it has to do with GIS mapping. So yeah, I think that's in Manaway Village, but sometimes things on one side of the street are in, things are on the other side of the street are out. So we have to get very specific information on addresses, every address, so we know that the right agency is responding appropriately to them. So our commitment to them is we'll do everything we can to make this work. We are just getting going on this. This is not something that's even, I think, in a 30-day window. In a true emergency, we pledge to try to get something in place, but we are, it's my opinion, we are nowhere near that yet. So we're moving forward as best we can, and kind of just doing things as we would with any other agency, taking them one step at a time and make sure they are appropriate before we move forward.
And in the bottom of this, you'll see where it says Ravenna shall not be liable for any injury to persons or damage to property arising from this agreement caused by Manaway. So that is in there as well. Any questions?
Yes, I do see for that first portion, like under optimal conditions, we might be able to start providing this service early. But are you fully confident that we'll be able to meet this agreement's requirement to provide all of these services by January 1 of 2027? Because I know you said there's a lot of irons in the fire, and it's going to take a lot of time to work out these details and minutia, but how confident that you think that we'll be able to meet this requirement in term by that date?
So ideally, if 1 January was the effective date, I am confident that we can meet that date. The only question is how much sooner would we be able to? And that I just really can't speculate on.
Okay, just wanted to make sure we'd be good for the firm commitment.
And we're happy that we are getting another service. It's not going to interfere with the current staff where we need additional staff. So at this point, we're good. And we have a great dispatch service that we will be able to provide quality dispatch. And once things are up and running, it's going to be a good fit.
I do have a question, Dustin. Have we been privileged to the agreement that Manaway signed for dispatch services with the Sheriff's Department that appears to have a expiration date of September? Or if there's anything in that contract that would cause us trouble with us trying to move forward with it and they not execute moving to us?
So currently, dispatch, or Manaway dispatches for themselves.
Okay.
So they do not have a contract with anybody at this point in time for purposes of Manaway Village.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be any conflicts at any point in time with them coming on board. There's no other contracts that could potentially interfere, I believe, if that answers your question.
And then all of these additional expenses that you've delineated for us that they have to do, hardware, software, all those things, no expense of that is coming to the city, to us.
So I will tell you, we look at each one of those expenses individually. I don't want to tell you that some of that is incorporated into those fees because specifically, I'm not prepared to say that at this point in time. I will tell you, yes, the majority of the responsibility does fall on that agency. Sometimes some of these fees are quite small, and if it's a matter of getting it absorbed to move forward, we certainly would look at that. But none of those have been negotiated at this point in time, and it's kind of premature to say who's carrying which responsibility at this point. But the majority of the plan is for them to bear the burden of that cost.
Okay, thank you.
One last follow-up is, do you have an idea on what their historic volume of calls has been on a per-year basis?
I've recently looked at a number of departments, and unfortunately, I can't single out Manaway Village themselves accurately. I can tell you that the formula that we used to derive cost was based on their call load. Based on things that we do in the city, it's much, much smaller. But unfortunately, right now, I didn't bring that piece of information with me.
Okay.
Does Manaway provide 24/7, or does the Sheriff's Department cover for them overnight?
So both. Ideally, they would be 24/7. They are a 24/7 operation, but unfortunately, there are times that they are not.
They need to be covered? Okay.
Yeah. I'm okay moving this forward. Tyler, Matt, are you okay?
Yeah, just last question is, we have capacity for that volume as estimated?
So we do. As you know, to a degree, we are in the purpose of providing some dispatch services, primarily in fire. We have branched out recently into police. This will put us pretty much where we need to be or want to be. We don't really look to go any further than this. Sometimes agencies kind of ebb and flow a little bit, coming and going, shopping around. But this will put us pretty much at a kind of a sweet spot, and we don't look for really much more growth from here on out.
Okay, thank you, but I'm good to move this forward.
Okay, all right. So we're going to go ahead and move this forward to committee of a whole. I'm happy that we are able to get Manaway. Manaway will always have a special place in my heart. That's where my dad's from. So I'm happy to provide them with good quality care. So thank you for this.
I do have one question.
No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
So maybe I missed this part of your presentation, but what do you anticipate the earliest that we could possibly be providing services?
January, but
No, I mean, assuming that it was before January.
So Manaway very much would like to start sometime in September.
Okay.
We are not of the belief that we are going to be ready in September, but potentially October or November.
Then the only question I have really has to do with the tracking sheet because it's got an emergency clause. And the reason is because we don't want to start later than January 1st. My suggestion is we take the emergency clause off because there's no way we're going to start it within 30 days anyway. That was my suggestion.
That's a reasonable amendment.
Okay. Is that okay with you? Or do you think we need that?
What if it started September 1st, though?
Yeah, that's true as well. I don't want to cause any disruption in service, and I think it should be at the police discretion on the emergency clause on what they think. What do you think, Tammy? And I don't know, I'm thinking we should leave the emergency clause on.
If it doesn't pass by emergency on August 3rd, then it wouldn't take effect for 30 days, correct? Then we would go into September.
Yeah,
If they did get it ready by September 1st, that cause a problem.
Yeah, why would we not put the emergency clause on? I think it needs to be
Because
on.
it's not an emergency.
It is an emergency.
Oh, no.
It's not funny, but it is in emergencies.
It could be an emergency, so I
Yes.
think we need to be proactive. It's not going to hurt, I think, the process with this situation. A lot of times, things with the police department do come up, and we need that emergency clause. So I changed my mind with the committee. Do you want to keep the emergency clause on?
No, we don't need to.
You don't think we need the emergency clause?
No, we don't need to remove it.
Okay.
Sometimes in the process, things may progress faster than you anticipate. And we may be ready in a couple months.
Right.
I agree.
That will allow us to take on that responsibility. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if we pass it with the emergency clause and they're ready, we'll be ready.
I agree. Tyler, are you okay with that?
Yeah, I mean, if things really go smoothly, it just means we can help them out sooner and take some load clerically off of it.
Okay.
And ultimately, that's the goal. As soon as we can make this work, it is our goal.
Okay.
They're desperate.
Right.
So when we're ready, then we can move forward.
Okay, all right. We're going to go ahead and move it forward the way it is. Management update. Anything you'd like to share? I know we swore.
I have a question
Yes.
about what we were just discussing. Did anybody see the article in the newspaper about
I held back in addressing that. Essentially, that's old news. That issue was several weeks ago, and
Correct.
I don't know why it just now hit the paper, but we're past that.
it made my heart jump a little bit.
It caught my attention, and I'm in the negotiation process, so it's just old information.
Okay.
Okay, so that's old. The only thing I want to say about management update, going forward, I found out through cleaning up some properties and helping and working with multiple agencies, with public health and safety, I'm going to probably have a workshop committee meeting with administration coming up. You know, we have to plan something, but there's just a lot of little open ends that I think need to be addressed with some of the agencies that we have currently, some of the landlords that we have that are making things a little difficult, and some of the people that we are getting in our community that are not from the community, and how we tighten some of the processes up and staying on top of things. I found out that squatters have more rights than what the tenants have, and it becomes very tricky. And actually, this legislative process needs to go more to the state, to the judicial system, to work on a law at that level, because it is affecting local legislation by squatters' rights, because this is at a higher level than a local level. And I need to get with Mr. Semino about this because, people can show up and take advantage of somebody who's mentally ill. And then they have more rights than the actual tenants and can create havoc in neighborhoods and disrupt neighborhoods. And they don't even belong there. And then the police, their hands are tied on removing them because of these squatters' rights. And so we have learned a lot in the last week. We've made some progress. We have the one house completely cleaned up with working together. We had a couple squatters that had showed up and it was a complete nightmare. And now they have moved to another location. So the eviction process is happening as we speak with the attorney. Unfortunately, it's going to leave the people that are currently in this house homeless. But there's no other choices at this point. They are not stable enough to make these decisions. And I've talked to the social service agency that is in charge of this. They are aware. I feel safety is an issue, and it's also safety on our residents, and it's putting a havoc on our department. And I want to say our police department has really worked hard with a lot of these situations that some of us on council have no idea what is going on in some of these neighborhoods, especially on the west side. The west side has really taken a turn. And if we don't stay on top of this, each one of us, we're going to have problems. So I can tell you the administration is aware, and they have been helping as well. But we're going to have some meetings coming up to try to develop a better plan of action and look at some of these leaks that maybe we have in our ordinances, and then, talk to people at a higher level for some of these legislative issues, because it's just not right. And we need to figure out a better issue, a better plan of action. So I encourage some of our council members to drive through some of these neighborhoods and take a look around of what's going on, because it's quite scary, and we got to get a handle on it. So that's all I'm going to say on that. It is 8:30, and I'm going to end this discussion.
All right, it's 8:31. I will call the Streets and Sidewalks Committee meeting to order. Two items on the agenda this evening. The first item is the purchase of a new sewer jet Vector truck. The one we currently have has been in service for 10 years. The one we had prior to this one was in service for 10 years. So we're kind of on a 10-year replacement program. I'm sure everybody here tonight has received calls from residents regarding sewer issues. This is the piece of equipment that helps the city find those and clean those lines out. So it's a vital piece of equipment. It takes about 10 months to build this. So this is the agreement. They need the agreement from council to start construction. The price of this vehicle's $616,973. There's a discount, and which leaves a total sale price of $605,333. Our current truck does have some value, so we would receive about $90,000 on trade-in. So we would be looking to finance or lease in some way over 5 years, $515,333 for this truck. Tammy's currently working on some financing options. There's something in the packet, but we are exploring other options for better rates and better terms.
Yeah, and it does look like there's a letter authorizing us to opt out of the purchase in the event that we weren't able to financially complete this, up to 30 days prior to delivery, as a point of information.
Yeah,
I was
so,
happy- I was happy to see that on our current VAC, we had a trade-in of $90,000. That, I was pretty impressed that it had some value and helped. And our finance charges over the 5 years would be $55,000, which seems okay, but, I was going to ask specifically, do you have additional money set aside in equipment that we, on many of these major purchases, we set aside money over a number of years to purchase it? Did we do that in this case?
We have not.
We have
for the
not,
Vector.
okay.
No. I am looking at a rate of 4.65, which will save
Okay.
us, a little bit of money.
Yeah, this one was over 5.
So I'll see what
Yeah,
I feel like, but,
yeah,
and I'll have that paperwork
Yeah.
before it goes to
Yeah.
the vote.
Mr. Harper, I think it's a very important purchase. I think it's great to replace it now before it's a problem. And it's a 10-month build-out, so even if we pass it, we've got another year before we get it.
we
Yeah.
wouldn't have to appropriate the funds till, well, in the 2027 budget.
I will say that I have used these types of trucks in the past, and if you don't have it, you're going to be really stuck. It'll cost you more in the long run to pay other companies and see who's available. And if you think over 600 is a lot, which it is, you're going to be paying hundreds of thousands more in the long run. And it's something that could go out any time of the, who knows when.
But you don't need to be stuck, and I appreciate your subtlety.
So I understand how it works, and it's something that needs purchased.
Any other questions, comments? If not, we'll go ahead and move that item forward. There is a little bit of a time crunch with this, securing this price. We hear it all the time. The price is always gonna
Right.
go up the next month. So I don't know if we would be able to add this on a special for the 20th. Would that be possible, Mr. President?
We
To
do
approve it.
have a special,
Next week, right?
right,
This is vital.
To lock
We
in,
should.
to lock in this price,
so we
another
Yeah,
can,
he
we can
agreed to
certainly,
hold
3 to
that price.
5%.
if that's
could-
what your committee wants, sure.
Yeah, we would like to do that, please.
The only problem we have logistically is we don't have a clerk until Friday, and I don't
that's
know when
right.
Mr. Semino's coming back.
He's
back.
here.
He's back.
Oh, he
Yeah,
is?
he's back in town.
So you're right, Rob, because Chelsea's not going to be here till possibly Friday.
Right,
Right.
but she knows about the other item.
Then can't we let Mr. Semino know that,
Yeah.
to have him, has secretary write it up?
Yeah,
Yeah, who's our
well, I
clerk
didn't
pro
know if he
tem?
was back, that was why I asked. Yeah, we can certainly give it a shot.
Okay, if possible, we would like to do that, please.
If not, we could ask the gentleman from A&H if he'd hold the, hold the price until.
Yeah, and just explain to them.
Yeah.
So we'll go ahead and move that forward, thank you. Next item is a East Main traffic survey. Some of you remember a couple months ago, we were approached with concerns of speeding on East Main, and they wanted the speed limit dropped to 25 where it went up to 35. We don't have the authority to do that on a state route unless it's warranted. The only way to figure out if it's warranted is to do a study. So AMATS out of Akron has agreed to do a study. They're going to do it within the next couple of weeks. They'll provide Mr. Finney with the information they've gathered, and then he will make a determination if anything is warranted for us to move forward with
So,
that or not.
can I ask a question? How much is that study, is it costing us?
It's nothing.
Yeah,
It's nothing?
so
Okay.
just for clarification, I don't know that that's going to substitute for the type of study that ODOT wants. What they'll do is put in, what we kind of similar to what we have, a radar speed limit detector, and it'll record the data. It's not going to cost us any money because Bob's going to do the analysis. They're not going to do the analysis. This came up because the original person who brought this to our attention sent a formal request for the city to do this on June 16th, Mr. Lou Dudek. He also is, and he kind of pressuring me, why hasn't this council done anything? And I told him at the last committee meeting, the plan of action was to put one of our radar detector things up. It hadn't been done, but then when this request came in on the 16th, Bob took this other, and I assume that's why we didn't put our own out there, is because we're going to go to this other route. And I'm not exactly sure what the timing is. It could be a few weeks before that goes up. In the meantime, Mr. Dudek pointed out to me that Hudson had actually reduced part of 91 Darrow Road from 45 miles an hour to 35 without doing a study.
Well, has there been accidents that they can report?
No, it didn't have anything, that wouldn't really be a factor anyway without a
would think-
study. But the reason they were able to do this, although I think it's still subject to some scrutiny, is part of the code, the Ohio Revised Code that deals with this, says that if you have an urban district, then you have some flexibility. But I don't know. I question whether what Hudson did, number one, whether they actually did get approval, because you could still get approval from ODOT without a study. It's theoretically possible, and this may be how they got it done. Or if they didn't get approval from ODOT, I think they're pretty much at risk of whether or not what they did is legitimate. But the other concern is, the other difference I would say is, theirs went from 45 to 35. Going from 35 to 25, I think, would be a bigger challenge. And I don't know, I didn't do a whole lot of study into what constitutes an urban district, but I don't know that the area we're talking about would qualify. I wanted to bring to your attention, because I know Mr. Dudek had been communicating with me about that. And I don't know that we can, Bob's not here to really, and he would be the expert we would rely upon. I don't think we have a way around a study.
Well, my question is just that I'm not disrespecting a resident's, thought about this, but can we make a decision based on one person that lives on
Yeah.
a street? I mean,
Well,
what
that's a
if we
good
have
question.
other people in other neighborhoods saying, I want mine changed? So do we do this for everybody? I mean, are we opening, what is the data behind this?
yeah.
Of the police department, how many speeding tickets have they issued? How many accidents? I mean, I think there should be a lot of data also in making this decision. And again, I respect when a resident brings it to us, but again, we got people that live all over and might feel the same. So what is our procedure in acting on this?
And my understanding from what Mr. Finney said about it is that the letter that came met the statutory requirements to trigger this study. So the letter itself is a legal basis on which this goes forward. So that was what my understanding was. And there was a single person could trigger the letter, which in this case is what's happened. And so I think that's why we're going through it.
Well,
And
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr.
I spoke with this resident, and he would like to see the speed limit drop for the whole length of Main Street, from east to west, the whole entire length. I believe I'm just saying what I believe, that it's not a great idea to reduce it like that. I believe it's going too far. I'm looking for when school starts. Can you
We
imagine?
have more residents who would like to see it go up to 45 and then drop it to 25. So you can flip the coin to the other side. There's arguments on both sides.
Good news is none of
So
us study traffic,
The study is
so.
going to be done at no cost to
Right.
the city.
Right.
Bob will look at the information. I don't know if he'll reach out to the police department to gather additional information on tickets, crashes, things of that nature. But he feels comfortable that he can make a determination whether this is warranted or not.
We have a comment from.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
go
I
ahead.
wanted to mention, though, we're not, the council's not really taking any action. So, I mean, and it's not like one person is triggering something, but this is more than just one person. There's been other people and there's actually been news stories about this.
In town?
Yeah.
You guys
there-
must
there
have
was-
better luck than me, because every time I go across town, because I live on the west side of town, I get hit with every single red light through the entire city. It doesn't matter what time. It could be 6:30 in the morning, in the afternoon, it doesn't matter. I get hit with every single light. I don't think I've even ever hit 25 miles an hour going down 59.
I'm going to tell you, this is, glad it isn't costing any money, because I go by there at least 10 to 15 times a day, okay? It's hard for me to ever get to 35 miles per hour. The traffic is heavy. It's very heavy out there. If you drop this to 25 miles an hour, it's going to create a bottleneck, especially if you do out farther. And then we're going to be backed up all the way to Main Street, as it sometimes is already. We have a lot of traffic out here. It doesn't warrant this. I haven't seen that. If it does, the people that sit there, that's what we pay for police to do something about that. Run speed there, just like we do in school zones. That's what we pay for. That's why we put more policemen on there. Let's get it done that way. Now, that's going to be a mess. That will be a mess. And I go down Riddle Avenue. You know why? Because it's 35 mile an hour.
No stoplight.
Yeah, with no stoplights, exactly.
There's one.
So yeah, this is just it's a survey, there's no action required tonight.
Okay.
Any management update?
No, I would like to mention that we didn't specifically talk about the downtown area and the businesses. Working with the same program Amy's talking about, we did have a meeting a week or so ago with some of the people at the chamber, and we'll have another meeting this Thursday at the chamber. We're missing a key player with this, and that's Mr. Finney's on vacation with that, but the things, and we're going to be doing some similar things where I'm going to ask to have meetings with all the players when it comes to working with the people that don't have a place to sleep or a place to go. Keep in mind, we have spent money on that. They've set up a place out, Tommy's Place, which is almost to Infirmary Road. That was dedicated. NDS was the ones that decided to try and do something with that, so that we were having a problem, and we still might be, where the sheriff drops off prisoners that are released, and they don't have anything or anywhere to go. That's why that is out there. They don't have to come into town to drop them. They can drop them off there. Town Hall 2 is supposed to be running it. Now, it's not completely done, but they are working on. They're taking people in there. So we're trying to get them to cultivate the idea. Then they will direct these people back to where they originally came from with that. But we're going to be working on this because we cannot afford not to work on it. Thank you.
Thank you. 8:47, I will adjourn the Streets and Sidewalks Committee meeting.
I'll start the Utility Committee at 8:47. The only thing is utility tax liens. And that's for things such as delinquent utilities, property maintenance, rental inspections. Those things accrue sometimes at higher dollar amounts over the months. And when these things aren't paid after a while, they will be turned to over to the tax department, not the county tax department. And it would be assessed onto the owner's taxes at the end of the year. So that's all this entitles. So, are there any comments? If there are none, we can have a management update if there is any.
Take a vote for your committee to move it forward.
Okay,
I'm good to move this forward, Paul.
okay, Carmen? Okay. Yes,
All right, and back to you, Frank.
okay. So at
49?
8:49, this committee ends.
All righty.
You can go
And we're adjourned.
You were off by,
That wasn't too bad. It took a long time, but it wasn't too hard, right?
Say 7:45?